Hello, welcome to Quackalope, at least I think. This is going to be an interesting video. I honestly have no idea exactly what I'm signing up for. You see, while at a game group tonight playing The Great Zimbabwe with a couple of friends, we got 2 gameplays in. I nearly won but didn't either time. I received a text from a friend of mine, which said, interesting to see the BGG thread about you this week. And I said, what thread? Strange. And they responded, I just stumbled on it and I'm reading through it. Interesting how it kind of turns into a dog pile, particularly though, and no one really answers the questions. Haters gonna hate though. So I, needless to say, was distracted during the board game. I scanned over the first, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 comments here on the thread, and decided that I would make this video. I'm going to read it through it. There's 90-something comments. There's 4 pages worth here on BGG. It's apparently been going on since yesterday. And yeah, I don't know what I'm signing up for. I don't know what it says, but I'm going to read every word out loud and share it with you and respond and have a freaking conversation about it. This is the part of content creation or this industry, or this is the part that I don't like. Every now and then you'll get a comment here and there, right? Like a thread will pop up on Reddit or something over on Facebook, and you'll see people like for instance, some of the best are when a thread pops up on Reddit and someone says, oh, you should check out Quackalope. They do great content. And then someone below them says, I hate that channel. And then there's like 16 thumbs up. It's not the comment that hurts as much as the 16 thumbs up there. It's part of putting yourself out there. I get that. You make yourself open and vulnerable, and we've done well. Right? I am incredibly grateful for this community and for the kind of work that we've been able to do over the last 3 years. But at the end of the day, like I'm just a dude that just decided to start doing a board game channel. And I've put in 50, 60 hours a week at a minimum for the past 3 years, turned down career opportunities and other pursuits in life in order to pursue this. And I'm really proud of where we are, and I'm really thankful for where we are. And I'm going to do my best as I read through this to remind myself of our community and of how far we've came, because that matters. I think it hurts more because I'm not in this hobby as a career. Right? I was a wedding photographer as a career. And if a client didn't like what we did, okay. If someone didn't book us, great. Right? Like, I'll fill that weekend. I'll find more work. I'll do my best to fix whatever it is that was broken. But then, like, this is different. This is something that I do because I love this community. This community has saved me multiple times. When I didn't have any friends, when I didn't have a community, when I didn't know how to connect with the world, I mean, darn, when the world shut down, right? Like, for those of you that haven't been here, that are just discovering us, like, when the world quit, I had like 6,000 subscribers. I lost every ounce of photography work that I had, and this is the community that brought me through that. So, I think it hurts more because I care more. All right? And I am not under the impression at all, especially based off some of the comments that I've scanned over, that I am doing this video in any way to convince the people who don't like me to like me. I don't know if that's possible. That's okay. I'm doing this for my community. Because I have to be willing to have a conversation. To talk, right? With you. I don't need other members of my audience stressing and getting into online digital debates with people that we don't know. So I'm going to sit and read through this. Every single word, every single comment. And for those of you that are tuning in just to get a specific response or specific engagement that I'm unaware of at this point, I'm going to link and timestamp the start of every comment with the name of the person who left it. Their BGG name, completely public, right here. And so that you can organize it, so you can see, so you can check what people are saying, right? And based off of some of the stuff I've gone through, earlier this month, and there's no reason for you to believe me when I say earlier this month, but earlier this month, we have been taking a look at how we display things like monetization on the channel. Because the channel is built on kind of a foundation of 3 principles: YouTube ad revenue, Patreon, and working with publishers, doing things like sponsored gameplays. And previews, of course. And I'm going to be honest, if you want this channel to exist at the moment, those 3 things are the only things we've found to keep us afloat. If you have a better solution for me, if you have a different answer, if you have a blank check and a pocketbook full of cash, I'd love to have that conversation. But myself and every other content creator that has grown to any notable position, a notable position for me contains one of a few things: a team of people around them that are helping create work, and or the ability for themselves and maybe another person or 2 to go full time, has had to answer the question, how do they fund? Right? How do they make that possible? And so, one thing that we've been re-looking at is how we display that to you, the audience. And we'll have a video coming out later on today that's going to be talking specifically about monetization here on the channel. How you can check to see if a video is monetized, if it's completely for free, or if there's some sort of collaboration, right? Every now and then, I mean, not every now and then, we purposefully produce gameplay videos for free alongside channels or publishers that we do previews of. Why do we do that? Because in my opinion, that's the best way for you to get the most information possible to decide if the game is right for you. And we'll talk about that more, I'm sure, as we work through these comments. But we're going to be working through a system to make sure that that's as easy for you to find as possible. And the video that we're producing is going to be linked in every single one of our descriptions going forward, so that you can check. If you're hesitant, if you're questioning, if you just want to know whether or not there's any degree of financial bias involved, we'll have that conversation with you. And then along with that, just so you're aware, I have in this industry, I have 2 people that I'm responsible for, right? And first and foremost is the audience. And then secondly is the publishers who are trusting me with prototypes and coverage. And we strike this balance of trying to be honest to both of you. I don't want to sell you a game that you don't enjoy. I don't want the publisher to send you a game that you don't enjoy. You'll start a BGG thread about it and tell them that you hate the game. It's never the goal. The goal is to give you as much information as a viewer about whatever title you're interested in, so that you can do your due diligence. You can do the research necessary. And you can decide if you're going to like a game. So, I'm going to try to read this with grace. That is hard to do. You get like the butterflies, right? And your heart starts beating fast. You get adrenaline spiked into your brain, and it's 10 o'clock at night, and I made myself a tea, and this wasn't the plan for the evening. I was supposed to be working on content. I'm trying to learn how to play a few games, and we're trying to go through the BGG Top 100 list, and I'm working on brand new short form videos here on the channel, and this was not the plan. Okay, let's dive in. Let's start the conversation. When did Quackalope become the go-to for exclusive board game coverage? Interesting that they use the term exclusive there, because on things like some of the videos, I'm going to try not to tie things to people to just not lengthen the conversation, but I have used the term exclusive myself, so they might be sourcing that from, that could be my fault. KK Niller, not sure if this is the right place to discuss, but did Quackalope ever just show up on people's recommended YouTubes sometime this last year? And now Quackalope and Board Game Co. have joined forces to get all the exclusive reveals and make endless hype videos. Are they the premier source for this? Did it used to be Man vs. Meeple before everyone made a hubbubaloo about promoted content? It is just that there hasn't been a YouTube channel specializing in coverage, new and upcoming releases till Quack. The other big channels have been review outlets or how-to-plays. Am I just imagining things? Is it even appropriate to discuss here? 6 upvotes, and let me try to discuss this, right? This is probably going to be a longer video because I'm going to discuss every comment that I can. We've been around for about 3 years. Really, we kind of took off about maybe a year and a half ago, right? Like when the pandemic kind of started, I put this as my full-time career. My other career, which was photography and videography full-time, went to nothing in a matter of days. You can watch the whole journey in videos there. We have certainly grown a lot over the last year or so, and that is probably why you're seeing us pop up more and more in your subscriber feed. Along with that, we've been executing on better and better thumbnails. We've been tagging our videos more directly. We've been working on titles and descriptions that help people engage with it. And the higher that algorithm is on YouTube, the more people will tune in, and the more YouTube itself will share our videos with you. They'll recommend it. As far as exclusive coverage, we don't just do Kickstarter coverage. I mean, there are some months where it feels like that's all we do, certainly. But when you actually kind of come down to the brass tacks, the coverage we do on the channel, the vast majority of it is probably still Kickstarter games in some form, things that are coming in and arriving to us. But for the most part, we actually do a lot of other content outside of Kickstarters. We have our full Right For You, Wrong For You review series. We have Confirmation Bias, which I got torn up for. We have our BGG Top 100 list that we're currently going through. We have our weekly vlogs and our Shelf or Sell series where we break down kind of everything we're keeping and getting rid of in our own personal collection. All of that has came from months and months and many years of experimentation and trying to find new formats, and we're constantly doing that. So I'm excited that you're discovering us. Thanks for being here. It really is something else. I am sorry that this thread, if this was not the intention that you were looking for, pulled out maybe the worst in our community. And maybe that's not a fair statement. Pulled out elements of our community that are critical of us and what we do. I am going to try to listen to the feedback and see if there's stuff here that I can take and I can grow from, because that is a important thing to do, and it is an incredibly hard thing to do online. So that's us. That's what we do. We certainly do as much new stuff as possible. It benefits the channel greatly to be the first one out covering a brand new title or topic, or sharing new information with you, the audience. The whole YouTube algorithm, the whole kind of hype train that everyone's on, if I will, is built around that. I'm going to be honest, our BGG Top 100 series has gotten terrible views compared to new stuff that's coming out, stuff that's currently in the primary zeitgeist. It's the same reason why people come here to BGG, to engage in discussions around the brand new games, the brand new titles. You see it on the BGG hot list every single week. It's the same type of content that everyone here in the industry capitalizes on in one way or another. We are trying to do the best we can at being the best we can, both at content creation and at covering games. The next comment from Chris B, I actually like quite a lot. This is never heard of them, with 38 upvotes. I don't know if some of those are spiteful. This is kind of like the Reddit thread, right, where the downvotes are the things that hurt the most. Hey, Chris, nice to meet you. If you like what we do, please check out a whole retinue of our content. If you like what we do, hit the subscribe button. This is us. Sorry we had to meet in this way, I suppose. Mike Al. Are you Quackalope? Great suggestive title, by the way. I don't know if it's the title on the top or the bottom. I suppose it is. He's complimenting the BGG Thread title, which did, I suppose, encourage people to click on it. So that is accurate. When did Mike Al become the foremost expert on board games? ? And you should send him loads of money, by the way. I don't quite understand the context. When did Mike Al become the foremost expert on board games? I am not sure that Mike Al is the foremost expert on board games, but cool. And it says you should send him loads of money. I don't know who is sending who loads of money, but cool. Keith R. Who or what is this? I second that have also never heard of them. I watch tons of board game content on YouTube, multiple people. I have never heard of or had these folks pop up as recommendations. 8 upvotes there. Keith, nice to meet you. We are Quackalope. We're kind of a horned duck, and we produce board game content. Adam VIP. I enjoy Quackalope content. The playthroughs with Board Game Co. are great. Bus was a fun one in particular. Favorite game of all time. They had a nice few games of Oath as well. He teased us with future Feudum content, and it hasn't happened, though. If you find this thread, we still want it. Well, I did find the thread. I have an unboxing of Feudum that I did with my old guests when I was living in my parents' house in Kentucky. I have not edited that yet, and it is so old at this point, I really should just go ahead and get it up. We kind of had a period there where I was just emotionally breaking apart. Glad you enjoy the content. One of the few on this thread. Thank you for being here, contributing your voice. And as far as Feudum content coverage and everything like that, I am working on it. I promise. I have the game. I love the game. It's like an hour-long teach, and it is really hard to get people to table it. But I do need to bring that back up as like a heightened priority, especially with a designer working on another game. So a response to K. Nyler, who said, not sure this is the right place to discuss, but did Quackalope ever just show up on people's recommendations? YouTube sometime last year, and now Quackalope and Board Game Co. have joined forces to get all the exclusive reveals and make endless hype videos. Now this is Base Jester that's responding here, and he said, I have asked YouTube not to recommend videos from these channels, so I am blissfully ignorant of any recent rise. That's honestly a really great suggestion, and Base, I appreciate you lending your suggestion to the audience here. If you don't enjoy our content, there are steps you can take to just make sure you don't see it. I would appreciate it if that is the case. You don't, chat about us as much, but that is perfectly your right and perfectly fine to do. We have blank lightning bolt, but it's at nothing. Same. Check out any Kickstarter though, and you'll see Quackalope. They'll shill for anything as long as they get exposure. Personally, not a fan of the overly theatrical monologues and clickbait titles. So this is going to be a recurring theme, which we will touch on. Like I said, I've been a few more comments down, and then I have no idea. I enter into the blindness. We do cover most of the notable Kickstarters. Yeah, it's one of the things we've been working towards really heavily. We have a great audience for Kickstarter coverage. We invest a lot of time in trying to get content as accurate and right as possible. And we really are thrilled that we get the opportunity to highlight and showcase new games for you. The hard part for me is understanding what it is you would like us as a channel to do. Would you like us to not cover Kickstarters anymore and not do any coverage at all? Do you just choose to kind of ignore the content that we do, which again is perfectly fine? But then this seems to indicate that you'd like us to take some action other than the action we're doing. Personally, not a fan of the overly theatrical monologues. Honestly, man, that's just me talking. I hear you. It is just me. And clickbait titles. We'll talk about that a bit more, but yeah, it's got to come up multiple times. I know for a fact it's going to. Like last summer, as I was going out to Sam Healy, we were exploring and kind of figuring out how to do the vlog, playing with that content. And playing with, I will grant you, some titles that were a lot more clickbaity. Right? Like She Left Me, where in the first 3 seconds of the video, we diagnose and I let you know that she's getting on a plane back and the vlog's just going to be between me and you. Or The Problem with Sam Healy, for instance. The audience did not like that content. And so we've done our best to adjust, listen to the feedback. We've done our best to continue making titles and continue making videos and continue making thumbnails that encourage the algorithm to engage with us. Because that's the balance, right? Like, how to what degree would you like us to not try to do good on the platform we're on, in order to appease some degree? I mean, the nature of this thread indicates that we're doing well, right? Like that we've been reasonably successful, or else there wouldn't be, 90 different comments of people talking about us and what they don't like about what we do. So that's a challenge. Like it's always kind of a shift and a pull, and I think at points while experimenting, stepped over a line there that wasn't fair to the audience and wasn't good for the channel. That being said, that's part of experimenting, and I'm posting stuff online. I can't take things back. I can't, adjust or shift position. People will kind of ascribe whatever it is to you. Whatever mistakes you made live with you forever. So, K. Nyler, again. Overly theatrical is a good way to describe it. Unnecessary pauses for drama. I guarantee you, I am not talented enough to make unnecessary pauses for drama. I am just myself, just talking. Norman Hayden. They are just different. Some people get tired of the old regulars. It's nice to hear differing opinions on games. Cool. I appreciate it. I appreciate you looking for differing opinions on games. And I think you should do that. I think there's a lot of great content creators out there. And if we're not your style, there's plenty that you can find. And if we are your style, we'd love to have you as part of the audience. Mindy Enemy. I don't watch much Quackalope, but I do very much enjoy BoardGameGeek. Great. BoardGameGeek does a great job. I'm sure his ranting style isn't very attractive to some, but I like it more than most other content creator styles. He does rant a little bit. I won't address other content creators heavily on this video. That's not my goal, to pull other people into the conversation. But I am glad that you popped in here, and whether or not you're a fan of me, I'm glad you're speaking up for Alex a little bit. Someone else commented, this is Alfonso54, said who, which again, I appreciate. Responding to Mindy, who we just read. Same, I liked Quackalope until he kept doing clickbait nonsense, and when asked to stop, he defended it for getting more views. BoardGameGeek is great. So that was Ray that was commenting there. Ray is talking about a series of videos I did. I posted a vlog titled She Left Me, which, like I said, within the first 5 seconds, we showed Shira getting on an airplane and heading out. And then it was my journey home from that point on. And we got a lot of eyes on that. We got 15,000 people clicking on that. And the dislike ratio was horrible before YouTube removed dislike ratios. And there was a lot of criticism there. And I think a lot of that was fair. And a lot of it was also hostile. And in the next video that we did, I titled the video, I'm done with YouTube, and I had a response. And that response was a lot more like this response was. It was a breakdown of the concept behind making catchy titles, doing your best to work within the framework that we're given, because we're not competing in the board game space. We're trying to get eyes within and without the board game space. We're trying to bring people into the hobby space as much as possible. And with hours and hours, it's like 30,000 hours of YouTube content's uploaded every, hour or something like that. That number's wrong, but there's some insane statistic that displays how much content is put up online and how much competition there is for your attention. And so a catchy title that is dispersed within the first few seconds, that encourages you and other people to click, and then makes the YouTube algorithm work in our favor, is something that does benefit us. It benefits any channel that does it. The trick is doing it right. And the biggest mistake I've made, one of the biggest mistakes I've made on the channel, is instead of leaving in a 7-minute monologue, I wanted to get back to the vlog. I wanted to be the entertaining, fun content that we like to do. And so I cut it off at like probably 1:30. And I looked like a dick. I did. I didn't look like I had any nuance to my opinion. I looked like I was blaming my audience. That sucked. It wasn't the intention, and I think Ray, I think you were rightfully upset about that. So there's two elements. I think we've stepped over the line in some areas, and that sucks. And there's no great way for us to adjust or correct that. I also think that we're doing our very best to perform within the space that YouTube creates for us, or that social media creates for us, and that's part of the nature of it. We're doing everything we can to be successful, to encourage you to watch our videos, to work with publishers, to grow the board game hobby. Ultimately, this is my career, and hopefully this will be a few other people's careers down the road. So in order for us to make that possible, we have to do everything we can to succeed. Keith R. So is Quackalope one person or a group of people? And this is just the branding. Keith, Quackalope is, at the end of the day, primarily me. My partner, my girlfriend, Shira, works full-time with me, but she's a professional trained NICU nurse, and oftentimes she still goes back to nursing now and then. And then we have some team members. I won't list them publicly here because they're not always on the channel. We have one in particular who is hoping in the next year or two to be full-time here on Quackalope, but the logistics for that are just impossible at the moment. But no, Quackalope started as me. It started in a friend's living room, setting up and filming every time. It grew into an apartment in DC while I was still working a second full-time job. Then when the pandemic hit, I moved into a single bedroom back in Kentucky with my father and produced content with two close friends for the duration of that year. And now we're based up here in Cleveland, Ohio. And we have a more dedicated space, a more dedicated studio. But yeah, end of the day, anything Quackalope is sourced and comes back to me. I'm the individual. I'm the creator. I'm the owner. I'm the one to blame. I'm the one people are talking about, right? The blank person again, who is not nothing. A group, but it always kind of feels like one guy mansplaining stuff. Okay. Reasonable. I certainly don't mean to come across that way. Communicating digitally is complicated, but it is not a group. Like the people you see here on the channel have always been just my friends. I think one of the things I'm proud of on the channel is I think we have more guests and more guest creators than any other channel on the platform, because I just build game groups wherever I am, and I invite those people to come be on the channel and film with me. And we've been able to do that more and more with content creators and with fans. And I'm really proud of that. Jonathan Dunkey. I feel like part of the key is overcoming YouTube's algorithms to find fresh content instead of popular content. That said, all YouTube seems to want to recommend for me are young strangers announcing pregnancies and Minecraft, two things about which I have never had an interest or watched. Jonathan Dunkey, I promise you that when we make our video about being pregnant or our Minecraft video, we will warn you first so that you can block that content. YouTube is a whole thing unto itself. It's not this board game space. It's this giant multimedia platform where we are the smallest subsection of the smallest subsection. Like, those of you that watch YouTube content in the board game space, you realize the biggest content creator in this space has just over 300,000 subscribers. There are channels about lock-picking lawyers with millions. There are news channels with more. There's a channel called Ants Canada, which has millions of subscribers, and he keeps botanical ants. I've watched videos and channels with more subscribers about how to clean the mulch off of your driveway after laying down sod for your gardening bed. We're tiny. And part of the puzzle is figuring out why. Like, why doesn't board game content perform well in the YouTube space, especially with our content, and especially with things like Frosthaven doing 50,000 different backers, right? Like, how do we get more attention? How do we get more eyes? How do we grow our hobby space? How do we have more people to play board games with? I'm not sure. The blank comment again, nothing. I definitely spend a lot more time than I used to telling YouTube not to show me things ever again. It's a great... For those of you who didn't know, you can hard block channels, content creators, whatever you want on YouTube, and the algorithm will work to show you specific content. Keith R. I watched a few videos, kind of like them. Glad to have at least a different thing to watch. Cool, Keith. Thanks for being here. Really glad you checked out some of our videos. Glad you're enjoying some of the stuff you found. Thanks for leaving a comment. Nathan Ryan. I like how, is this channel overrated? Is OP, yet like 7 of these posts are, who are they? Kind of answers the OP's question. That's fair. Up to this point, I do know that it takes a swing based off of the message that I got. But up to this point, yeah, it's been a lot of people saying, who is this content creator? Which is fine. Jason responding to nothing, who said a group, but it also always kind of feels like one guy mansplaining stuff. And then Jason responded, yeah, he does this a lot. I'm sorry. Doing what I can. Jason, continuing. There have been a bunch of channels that specialize in being hype machines for crowdfunding. MVM, Dice Tower, Mark Street, Rhado, Quackalope just seems to be one of the creators they're prioritizing these days. My assumption is that they're one of the cheaper creators, and that creators get double coverage due to the Quackalope and Board Game Co. team-up. So instead of paying MVM for a single video, creators can get Jesse hyping the game with a gameplay video or like/dislikes video. Then Alex, Board Game Co. can assure backers that the campaign has value with one of his 45-minute rambles. Seems like smart marketing. It makes the consumer believe there are 2 sources praising the game instead of 1 paid source. So let's dig into this. First off, your theory sounds totally believable. If I was just a fan ambiently reading, I would think that does sound like good marketing. We have a few problems with this theory. Alex is incredibly particular, and we'll start with Alex and then we'll drop over to me. Alex is highly particular about how he runs his channel and how he features stuff on his channel. Alex does not and has not taken any paid content from publishers. And so, to keep in context, or to keep in mind, if that was the way it was working out, Alex is not benefiting at all, right? It would only be me. So, theoretically, if that was our grand scheme, then Alex should be taking money from publishers as well, which would make that a great operating system. So moving away from Board Game Co., let's talk about myself. We don't just do crowdfunding stuff. We certainly do a lot of crowdfunding stuff, and we're excited about it. We're excited that we get to hype stuff up. We've had a lot of great opportunities to partner with a lot of great campaigns, both when we were a brand new up-and-coming YouTube creator, and especially now that we're a little bit more established and we have an audience that's tuning in. We are not paid shills, or we are not paid for our opinions in any way. But we do take sponsored content, and we do so because, like I described earlier on in the video, we have kind of 3 sources of income, 3 sources of revenue for this being our full-time career. We have YouTube ad revenue, which people said that we absolutely should not turn on when we turned it on about 2 years ago. We have Patreon, which we launched when the world fell out from underneath us, and we've been incredibly grateful and thankful for the support that we have there. It's kind of been a foundation to this entire thing. And then we have our partnerships with publishers. The content we do with publishers is around a few specific things. We do gameplay videos, we do preview videos. From time to time we'll do how to plays, but honestly they're complicated and I miss rules often enough that we don't do them that often. Outside of that, there's really not much, if any, other content that's sponsored unless we're doing something very unique and something very specialized. Sometimes a showcase or an unboxing. But yeah, that's our main stuff. We also have, it's kind of a preview format, but we have a 10-minute or less format that is more heavily scripted with voiceover and involves B-roll and stuff like that. Whenever we've done reviews, like just hardcore reviews in relation to games that we are sponsored with, we always do our best to let you, the audience, know. We do that in 3 ways, and like I said at the beginning of this video, we are working on and refining our method for letting you, the audience, know, because more information only benefits you. I always have a tag in the description. I started that about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago, that I actually have to go physically remove one of the pieces. It says, this is not a sponsored video, this is a sponsored video, and this game or board game was sent to us by the publisher. Now, honestly, I almost never edit that 3rd line, not because everything's sent, but because I'm lazy, and that's part of what I need to improve. But the first 2 lines, I absolutely do. I go in and I remove or delete one of those 2 lines every time we have a video published. In fact, we've had some accidentally go live or stayed private and shared to our Patreon community that has had both of those there. And every now and then you'll see a comment of someone being like, hey, this video is unlisted still, but why are both of those things there? And they're there because they're always there. They're auto-generated when we upload a video. Because I think it is important for you, the audience, to be able to source information. We also swing down and turn on the paid advert tag on YouTube. Now, the balance of that is, do we turn that on for every single video that we're doing with a publisher or have ever done with a publisher, or do we do it for the specific video that the publisher hired us to do? That's kind of the question, right? That we don't have a good answer for, but I have a solution that we'll be presenting to you. And then the other thing is, whenever we do any review content, that means talking about the game over on BoardGameCo's channel, which sometimes we do. Sometimes we have a paid or sponsored gameplay, and we'll swing over to BoardGameCo, we'll do a review in correlation with him, and I will say at the beginning of the video, hey, just so you know, I have a relationship with the publisher, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. We always share that as much as possible. And when we have a paid contract, I actually do my best to be as critical and as thorough as possible. Because the reality is, I don't want to sell you a game that you won't enjoy. That loses your trust in me, that loses your trust in the company that you just bought the game from, and it just creates context like this. I have to be good to my audience. If I'm not good to my audience, then I lose everything we've built. And I haven't spent the last 3 years working for 60 to 80 hours a week for a couple $100 extra or a free board game in my pocket. That's not why I did all this. I did all this because I like board games, because I care about the community here, and because I thought it'd be really cool to make this my career. And it has been, and I'm grateful for that. So, we don't only do Kickstarter coverage either. But in context with Kickstarter coverage, let me talk to you about our policy. We have 2 policies that you should be aware of. First and foremost, if a video is coming from, if a board game is coming from a brand new publisher, meaning this is their first time stepping out into the hobby, and I think we are unique in this application, we are the only channel that does not charge for first-time publishers. The only channel that takes some sponsored content and does not charge first-time publishers for their content creation. And sure, some things might slip through the cracks, but that is our policy. Whenever we're aware or able to kind of pick up on information, that's the stance we take. Why is that the stance we take? Well, in this industry, I have a real problem with brand new people who are stepping out, trying to make things work, being charged whatever amount of money for a game that they're probably not going to make money for on Kickstarter. That's just the nature of the beast. The first time people run Kickstarter campaigns, they usually don't make money. And if you're watching this being like, what are you talking about? I know a board game that made $300,000 that didn't make money. I know one of the most successful board games in our industry didn't make money, especially on the first printing. Now, when they came back for a reprint, expansions, retail release, that's where they actually made their income and their profit. But that first wave is full of so many unexpected twists and turns, and I've never wanted Quackalope to be on the list of people who took money from someone when I knew that they might not make money, no matter how much they raised. And I'm telling you, we have turned down contract work with games that have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars here on the channel, specifically because we either didn't think it was a right fit for the channel, or because they were first-time publishers. We wanted to be able to cover them, to hype them up, to share their content, and we didn't want any sort of paid affiliation with them, right? We didn't want that tie. Now, that being said, with larger publishers, and we work with some of the largest in the industry, I have no problem charging them for a gameplay video or a preview video. You're already going to be looking for information on the game. You're searching for what we're offering, and it takes me hours. And I mean it. Average of probably 6 to 8 hours to produce every single video on the channel. And we release, right now, anywhere from 1 to 2 videos a day. Now, I do have Shira helping me, which has taken the weight off a little bit, and we've learned how to edit faster than we ever have before. That doesn't take away from the amount of time it takes to invest in learning a product. So, keep that in mind. The other thing that I was going to mention when it comes to the way that we do monetize content is if a company hires us for something like a preview video, I will do my very best to release a gameplay video or some other type of affiliate content when I'm able to let you, the audience, know as much information as possible. I don't try to trick you into anything. I do try to let you know the best parts of the game. I try to showcase it, show off B-roll, add fancy music, and encourage you to watch. But my goal is never to sell you something that you're not interested in. My goal is to give you information. And a preview video is good at displaying information in about 10 minutes. Give you a general breakdown of the game, and myself, I back a lot of things off of preview videos. But for those of you that are commenting here, you're looking for more information than that. You're the type of people that search, right? That want to be able to dig in. We do our best to give you gameplay videos and other non-sponsored content in order for you to find more. So that's the balance of it, right? And that's our own free time. The majority of content we do on our channel, and I mean vast majority, 75, maybe 80% of the content we do here on Quackalope is completely for free. And that number has increased only within the last month or two, honestly. This year, we've doubled down on trying to succeed. We've really found a stable position. I moved out of my dad's house, and we're doing our very best to kind of grow a successful business. I want to succeed. I want to be here. I want to be creating content in 10 years. That's not an easy thing to do unless you're purposeful about the way that you go about it. So Jason, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your feedback. I hope that clarified some things. I totally understand if you don't believe me, or if you don't believe elements of what I'm saying. Of course, I'm biased in the sense that I believe in myself and I believe in what we do, and I try to do right by you and by the audience. But I felt like it was worth addressing, right? Another comment from Jason. Jason's responding to Nathan Ryan this time. I like how, is this channel overrated? Is OP yet? Like 7 of these posts are, who are they? Kind of answers to OP's question. So that's Nathan that commented, and then Jason said, that wasn't the original post at all. The question was about whether Quackalope and BoardGame Co. have become the go-to for Kickstarter hype videos. This isn't a question about whether the channel is overrated, nor is it a question about whether people are aware of this channel. People who don't back or rarely crowdfund games would likely be unaware of both creators. If you look at the bigger crowdfunding campaigns the past 4 to 6 months, you'll find a lot of Quackalope/BoardGame Co. content. Much of it will be linked on the main page of the campaigns. The OP is wondering if anyone else has noticed this thread. Yeah, that's totally fair, and I think that's a correct redirection from Jason here. And we certainly have worked with, probably the largest campaigns over the past 6 months or so, and really proud of and really grateful for the work that we've been able to do with them. One that people would probably bring to the top of their mind would be like our Marvel Zombies coverage. We did 2 sponsored gameplays with them. We did, I believe, 2 or 3 more additional pieces of content completely for free. We did the unboxing of Galactus completely for free. We did the road trip down, which cost me hundreds of dollars to get the mini painted completely for free because I thought it'd be content that the audience would enjoy seeing. And they did. We got a lot of views on those content. It was worth doing. But it wasn't some type of marketing hype train. It was me trying to give the audience what I thought they wanted. Leo Zappo left a +1 to Alfonso's comment. Who? Frank K. Well, he's been prolific. He published a 12-minute video on the new Sleeping Gods Kickstarter page about 12 minutes after the page went live. I've liked some of what he has to say. I know it's a group, but it's mostly one guy that is the face of it. Overall, though, I'm a bit jaded because many of the YouTube content creators seem to wow about games, and that's not helpful for making purchasing decisions. I like no pun intended, for the most. I find him amusing and honest. So Frank, thanks for commenting. We had early information from GameFound, along with a lot of other content creators, most of the major content creators, talking about the stuff that they were releasing on Monday. So we were able to reach out to Sleeping Gods, and we had a relationship with that publisher. No financial relationship at all, but we at least are on a verbal line. You'll find that this industry is really small, and so most people in this space know most everyone else, especially behind the scenes. Everyone knows everyone. Yeah, we were able to get a little bit of exclusive information. We reached out specifically asking for that because I thought it was the only way that would be worth making a video for you all to watch. And we got to share some stuff before anyone else because I pursued that lead. I thought it would be a successful video. It did perform very well. And I'm super excited about the new Sleeping Gods stuff. Shira and I are now learning and diving back into Sleeping Gods to bring a campaign here to the channel. And guess what? That is not sponsored in any way with Red Raven. It's just back into the conversation here in the area, and I think there's an audience of people that would be excited to see the early Sleeping Gods content as we anticipate the next Kickstarter launch, or the GameFound launch. I would agree. I think a lot of content creators seem a little too wow about games. There's two reasons for this. First and foremost, being wow about games is the way that you get views. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, when we're excited about games and you're excited about games, people tune in. We're going through the BGG Top 100, which I've talked about, and we're like 10 videos in right now, and like games like Trajan, which I think people should be wow about, have like 1,000 views. We can't run a channel on that. We can't grow a channel on that. We can't build a community on that. The only way we can support the other extra content we do is by producing content on the hype, on the wow, on the stuff that people are paying attention to build an audience, so that then those people will see amazing games, right? Like we just filmed a video on Russian railroads. We've been talking about terraforming Mars. We've played, we've played on-camera bus just recently. We just did an 18xx game here in the studio. Like we're not just WoW, but WoW is what YouTube shares with you. Benji Davis. It's a name I've heard, but not enough to have ever watched anything they've done. Benji, I'm so sorry. This is how you'll watch what we've done. Brian Dawson. I think the person who mentioned him being cheap and sharing an audience with Board Game Co. is spot on. Publishers get 2 for the price of 1. Hop back to that comment if you wanna check what I responded to that. And for the record, I'm a professional videographer and photographer. I had a full career before doing board games. I have been offered careers that I have turned down by other people in order to pursue board games. I'm making less now than I have ever made in my career since I was about 20 years old. But I am not aggressively cheap either. I understand the value of my time, and I'm perfectly happy charging the largest companies our space for what my time is worth. And again, there is no way we could support any of the content we do. I would have to go back to working full-time. Shira absolutely would have to go back to working full-time if we were in a position where one of those 3 pillars fell out. YouTube monetization stops, Patreon stops, sponsorships stop. Any one of those 3 things would make our company falter because they're the kind of 3 branches that support us. So let's see here. Let's turn... I cannot... he continued, Brian Dawson. I cannot stand Jesse or Quackalope. Same person. Glad you can't stand either version of me. You've never, as far as I know, met me in person, but I think it's a phase in the market, but I wish him the best while the spotlight is on him. I certainly hope we are not a phase in the market. Thank you for wishing me the best. If we can adapt, change, adjust, grow this space in any way, we will do it. I promise you that. The Skirted Meeple. New commenter here. It's one person's moniker, and I enjoy watching him and his girlfriend mostly. Cool. Thank you so much. I don't really consider Rhado a review outlet anymore. He does so much promotional content that the real review is impossible to decipher or doesn't exist. I would say he's overly dramatic himself. Everything is fantastic. People, before you play, Monica and Naveen, amazing content creators, also do a ton of paid gameplays and Kickstarter introductions. I'm not going to touch on other people's businesses. I'm not going to talk about Rhado. I'm not going to talk about Monique and Naveen. I am grateful for the work that they've all done here in the space. Monique and Naveen are amazing content creators. Quackalope definitely has a strong and distinctive style, but not sure why you'd single him out over the many outlets that do Kickstarter launch hype videos. You can see the usual suspects if you look at Stonemeyer's Libertalia videos on the day pre-orders launched earlier this month. Funny thing about Libertalia, I did do coverage of Libertalia. I did coverage because I had a game by affiliation, and I thought an audience would be interested in it. I did not do any coverage because I had a game of my own, just so you know. Let's continue going down. Caroline Black. I too don't watch Rhado anymore. Anyway, you click on some of his reviews and it's not even him. It feels like he has sold out. I have watched a couple of Quackalope's videos. He seems to cover a lot of new Kickstarters. Not sure I like his style much better. I watched a Board Game Co. one for Libertalia. Well, I have watched quite a few different videos as I am in two minds. Board Game Co. seems to be mainly Alex. Notice Tom Vassal or Dice Tower haven't reviewed this. If you look at the thumbs, it seems like hardly anyone watches these videos. 22 thumbs, open it on YouTube, and it's got 5,672 views. It seems anyone that does interesting reviews gets noticed and starts doing paid reviews for Kickstarter, and that is it. They are no longer independent or interesting. We actually have great engagement on our channel, just for the record. So does Alex. Our comments, thumbs, engagement are above most other content creators in the space, and we're really grateful for that. We do our best to respond to the vast majority of comments that come through, although that is impossible to keep up with. As far as Alex, just so you know, again, he doesn't take money from anyone. Moving down. Richard Ham. Richard Ham has chimed in. Richard Ham, for those of you that don't know, is Rhado. He runs Rhado Runs Through, which is a YouTube channel here on YouTube. Caroline Black, he's responding to this comment specifically. It feels like he has sold out. Richard Ham, it's been a while since I've seen one of these, so just want to put out there once more that I'm always up for chatting with anyone who'd like to point out where I'm actually actively and purposely misleading reviewers. Great, I'll make the exact same offer. My phone number is 202-997-2451. If you'd like to text me and schedule a time to chat with me, please feel free. My email address is quackalope@gmail.com. That makes it as easy as possible for you to reach me. I would be happy to talk with anyone who thinks I have sold them a terrible game, anyone who thinks I am misleading reviewers, and maybe your criticism will be, no, I'll take that back. Your criticism will probably be fair in some regards, and a conversation would be the best way for me to learn and grow and adjust the way that I approach stuff here on the channel. But yeah, so just in case you're trying to scroll back and write that down, my phone number is 202-997-2451. Feel free to text or call me. And if this turns into a bunch of spam, I'll get a new number. I don't know. That would stink, but there you have it. Moving down. Please let me know what games I've said are good, but which are objectively bad, and which I'm willing to lie publicly to cover for. I'm up for the debate for sure. So yeah, kind of a similar essence to what I'm taking, I suppose. I don't ever try to mislead the audience. It's never the goal. Rhado continues to say, I run through around 150 games a year out of thousands that are released. And about half of the ones I choose to take on are Kickstarters, and the other half are direct to retail. It doesn't seem out of the bounds of reality to expect that there are 150 great games a year. I certainly know how many bad ones come out because I say no every time a publisher asks me to cover them, paid or not. Interesting point here. I won't name names, but we on Quackalope have turned down paid contracts on multiple titles that I have seen other content creators, specifically ones who claim to not have any bias and not take any paid content, cover. And we turned those videos down because the games were not good. They weren't games that I felt comfortable advertising to my audience in any shape or form. There wasn't a version of my audience that I could see enjoying those titles. So please keep that in mind. We turn down probably 60 or 70% of the stuff that's offered to us for coverage. Not all of that's paid offers, but we turn down the vast majority of all requests we have. And it's not because they're all terrible games, it's just because they're not right for our audience. They're not right for me. And we select the stuff we're the most excited about. or the most invested in. That is paid or unpaid. Kingdoms Forlorn would be a good example. That was my most anticipated game of the year, and I spent over 40 hours working on content. You can watch the entire journey through the vlog, through the coverage, through the mistakes that we made along the way. And yeah, there wasn't a cent ever handed in my direction for that. So, keep that in mind. Richard Ham. So James D is going to respond to the block that I just read from Richard Ham. I won't read it all over again. But I realize this isn't the best place for the question, but have you ever said no to a bad one, only to find out later that it wasn't bad, maybe even good? The Quacks of Quedlinburg is the first that comes to mind for me. Interesting. The question's interesting, like said no to one that you think isn't good, and there's a potential that it is actually good. We say no to things that don't fit us. We say no to things that we don't have the bandwidth for. And in the context of kind of the wider content creator space, it takes me so long to learn, play, and get a game up and running that we absolutely, I'm sure, say no to things that are objectively good. That's just sort of the nature of the whole puzzle. I just realized that the top camera isn't there, so this is just going to be a front cam only, I suppose. I had it all set up, but it's not. I didn't hit record. Okay, James D. In response to that, Richard Ham says, yeah, it's certainly happened from time to time that a game I passed on because I was worried it might have problems turned out to be cool. I'm super aggressive at vetting, saying no to 9 out of 10 games I'm approached about. So I'm sure I make some bad calls, but I'd rather miss out on the occasional great game by being overly protective of my wife's playtime rather than make her sit through a stinker. For instance, I completely ignored The Loop for like almost a year, and I was an idiot because it's incredible. Truffle Shuffle turned out to be awesome, and I couldn't see that at first. Same for my farm shop. I could have done Rift Force, but it didn't grab me. But she saw how cool it was and stepped up to cover it for the channel. And I was embarrassed after I saw, but it didn't grab me. But Shay saw how cool it was, so he stepped up to cover for the channel. And I was embarrassed after I saw his coverage because it's so smart. So a response from Richard there. Good to have. Victor responds, not to anyone in particular, but just joining the conversation. Not to turn this into a bashing post, but full disclosure, I really do not like Quackalope and Board Game Co. I too noticed they just sort of popped up out of thin air one day. Thin air, year and a half of incredibly hard work. Okay. I gave them a shout, and I initially really liked their content. But after a while, I just felt something was super sus about their videos. Mainly, and this just got my observation, but I get the strong sense that neither of them actually enjoy board games. Okay, so I'll continue. Despite their impassioned approaches, it seems like this hobby is all business and no fun with these guys. For instance, in my opinion, Alex is singularly obsessed with whether or not any given game can simply be sold at a later date for a higher price, while Jesse is purely in it for the clout. I bring this up not to slander them, although I think that all the shade is warranted, but to explain why I personally feel their channels, as well as some others, are being pimped out by all these board game creators, especially the crowdfunding campaigns. It's because I think they're 100% shills, just like others have suggested, and so I guess it kind of raises a bunch of red flags for me that they appeared out of nowhere, flooded the community with their overly produced videos, and now it's almost like they're the be-all, end-all of board game reviewers and previews. Thank you so much. I don't know, something's just not up to snuff. And it's such a breath of fresh air when I go to a game's Kickstarter page and their stuff is nowhere to be seen. Anyway, end of rant. Woo. Victor, so first off, I'm not going to speak too much on behalf of Board Game Co., but because people are tying us together, because we are neighbors, we do a lot of content creator. Board Game Co. only is in this hobby because he likes board games. Solely, purely. He works 3 jobs, has 4 children, doesn't make much, if anything, from this content, and is doing everything he can to grow his platform so that one day he can actually do this full time. Just so you know. He is obsessed with board games, to his own demise, has lost friends because of it, and only ever wants to talk about board games. He's an amazing guy, a caring husband, a fantastic father, and he loves board games. He's been in this hobby for way longer than me. Myself, I am in this because I also love board games, but I love the community that board games creates more than I love the games themselves, which for some people that might be not acceptable. If you genuinely offered me a community in any other space and said there would be no community in board games, I wouldn't continue just playing board games by myself, right? I'm not a solo gamer, although I do enjoy solo games here when I can talk with you and engage with you all. I particularly and solely am in this hobby because the community has rescued me in so many different ways. Like when I had a 6-year-long relationship come to a halt, and this is the space that I turn to stabilize. So just in case you're worried or thinking that we don't enjoy board games, you're wrong. I don't enjoy this at all, a cent of it. And if I could play board games for a living and not have a single piece of the attention, I would happily do that. The trick is, if you want to play board games for a living, though, you have to do content. You have to work your butt off. When it comes to overly produced content and publishers working with us, I'm a professional photographer and videographer. I have a whole arsenal of cameras and gear from my wedding career, my event photography career, my careers that were more successful than what I'm doing here on YouTube at the moment. I'm pursuing this because in the 5-year scheme of things, I hope this becomes the thing that lets my family be home and travel and invest in each other. I want a better future for myself. But I could not do this. I could go back to shooting 30, 40 weddings a year, making way more money. I could go back to working for events in downtown DC. I could go back to any number of things. I don't want to. I want to be here. I want to be creating content. It's okay that you don't like it, but like, I don't know what to tell you. Along with that, let's see here. I think they're 100% shills, like others have suggested. So for the record, we didn't pop out of nowhere. I've been doing this for 3 years now. I put 1.5 years in, or 2 years in, before we even had much notoriety at all. I have worked 60 to 80 hours a week, nonstop, to my own demise, to my own detriment, to my friend's detriment, to my girlfriend currently's, her detriment. I have sacrificed a lot to try to make this possible. So, Bruce. It started off as being quite an interesting channel, but quickly devolved into the clickbait titles and Kickstarter shilling that it is today. A presentation style more suited for people who claim that aliens built the pyramids doesn't help. Bit of a shame, but it's easy enough to avoid. Can't blame anyone for making money from their channel. It's not really like people are obligated to watch it, but do wonder how much mileage there can be for a channel for a channel that, if it's known at all, is known for being unquestionably positive about any and all Kickstarter campaigns. BoardGame Co. is better, although the Kickstarter hype is still far too prevalent. The "will these Kickstarter games hold their value" videos are kind of nonsense, but I'm willing to accept that a man who runs a business buying and selling board games in North America has a different perspective on what games can be sold for than me, here, trying to make occasional sales on eBay or Facebook. I'm uneasy that both channels seem to normalize spending a couple grand a month on Kickstarter as being responsible behavior. I mean, people can do what they want with their own money, but if I were ever to buy one of these behemoths, that I'd be playing the hell out of it for months to try to justify the expense, not skim through it for a couple weeks and then move on to the next big thing. Well, it does help, Bruce, that our careers are working at and being board game content creators. It certainly makes the price tag of something like Marvel Zombies a lot more accessible when you're in a position that you can cover it in 3 or 4 videos and hopefully make back at least a small percentage of what you've invested in it. So keep that in mind. Like, it's like people investing in camera equipment or buying chairs for their office. Board games is what we do, and if we don't buy the newest board games, then they don't arrive, and we can't cover them and we can't talk about them. You can kind of not have it both ways. Do you want us to not take any money from the channel or not monetize the channel or not do anything to earn money? Or do you want us to cover games as much as possible? Without some degree of monetization, there's no way for us to purchase, sustain, and continue covering titles. And I get it. There's a lot of old titles that we could do. But at what free time? When I'm after I get home from a full-time job? And how much energy am I putting into that for a decreasing number of views? We are trying to be as successful as possible. I will not apologize for trying to be as successful as possible. I'm glad you thought our channel was interesting early on. We still, for the record, do a whole slew of content that is not related to Kickstarter coverage at all. And I'd love a conversation with the community. I'd love some feedback on what you would expect from us to do when we're covering a Kickstarter game. Do you want us to do a video that's dedicated only to the negatives, that's convincing you not to get it at all? Do you want us to break relationships and beat up on people in the process? Do you want us to post a review video? Well, apparently not, because you're going after Board Game Co. And again, he is publicly and privately not taking money from publishers. So there's no good solution here. Do you want me to not exist, not create content anymore? I mean, because that's also a conversation here, but it's one that it just isn't. It's not feasible. How am I supposed to respond to you if your answer is, don't review games, don't take money, cover only the old games, or cover no games at all, don't encourage spending money on Kickstarters, don't. It puts me in a really hard position because I don't know how I continue producing daily content for you without doing everything I can to be successful. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot I'm still figuring out. This entire process has been a learning process, and trust me, there's a lot I still don't know. Dogfish. I agree that they seem to come out of nowhere. I'm specifically talking about Quackalope here, and I personally really dislike their content, after a few bites at the apple. Mainly it's because the figurehead presenter, who I honestly didn't realize was part of a collective of reviewers on the same channel until reading this thread, we're not. It's me that you're pinpointing. I'm in every video on the channel, so the thread is categorically wrong about at least one piece of information you've believed. There's a chance it's wrong about other things. Who I honestly didn't realize was part of a collective of reviewers on the same channel until reading this thread, talks in this weird, ultra-serious, I'm presenting a tell-all documentary getting to the steady heart of Agricola style, which massively puts me off. There's a chance you're not watching now. Especially when he appears to have been in the hobby for less time than I have. It is really jarring to have someone talking so serious with this attempt at authoritative voice when I realize I've played about as many games as they have compared to other content creators, where I know that certainly isn't the case. As for the idea of people are shills, etc., I can't blame people for going about trying to get something out of their time and passion, spent in something. I think you're really expecting a lot out of people when you're asking them to do something as a labor of love for year after year after year before they get something in return, while simultaneously turning down offers to do paid content or receive free games. Would I want to consume content that is all preview or hype? Definitely not. And that is my second complaint with the guy, that he mainly seems to be the nature of his videos I've been recommended by the algorithms. So a few things here. Dogfish, I don't know how long you've been in the hobby. I play an average of 30 to 50 games a month at the moment. I've been in the hobby I've been running Quackalope for 3 years. I've been in the hobby for about 5. I may be less educated in board games than you. Good credence. And that's fair for anyone to ask, anyone to know, right? I've played thousands of board games, but within context of the wider spectrum, there's a lot of board games I haven't played, a lot of classics that I haven't played, a lot of games that were published before I got into the hobby that I haven't played. I only have what I have, and I've been aggressively playing games. I spent 2 years not doing a top 10 list because I felt unequipped and unable to review titles. I felt like there was still a lot out there that I haven't played. Trust me, I am concerned about it, aware of it, self-conscious of it, and I think it is a fair criticism for how you read what we do. I don't think it's a fair criticism for whether or not I should be in this space creating content. I'm sorry. This space is open to people who just fell in love with Monopoly or Azul, and this space is open to people that have spent all their time on Kingdom Death. It's open to 18xx, it's open to board gamers and D&D players and people who just found a hobby that has a community that they love. As far as my presenting style, I'm just me. I honestly wish that my presenting style was more silly and goofy. it's hard, right, to sit down in front of the camera and to be a human and to communicate with people. Like it's a whole skill set. I present the way that I do. If you want to see more about who I am, I publish vlogs where I'm much more not in front of the camera, right? I don't know if it helps at all, but you're welcome to check out any of those and kind of see a different scene or a different side. I appreciate the defense of the concept around people trying to make money. There is not a large successful content creator in this space that has not had to ask that question. How do we do this full time while making a living? There's maybe 5 that have succeeded at it in terms of channels. It's a balance, right? And I don't have an answer. I have theories. I have ways that it's worked for us. And if you have better solutions for us, I'd love to hear it. Most of the channels at our size, at 37 going on 40,000 subscribers, most of the channels, if not all of the channels, still have some degree of individuals working full-time jobs to support the content they're making on the side. And none of them put out content as rapidly as we do. When it comes to our size, it's one of the reasons we've been growing, is because I've been able to put myself in a position to dedicate my life to this. And for the record, the year that I did that, the year that I made that transition, I lived in my parents' bedroom. I moved home. I left DC. My entire freaking career shut down. Like, for 2 years in this space, I slept on a pull-out couch so that I had as much room as possible to film in a studio, which was in my bedroom, and to have people over to host games. Ask anyone who's been to any of my own spaces, right? I had a little red twin couch with a twin mattress on it and a Tempur-Pedic topper on top. And it got so springy in terms of being worn through that I put one of the Thermarest air mattresses in between the springs, and I kept doing content. So, I'm not going to do that for 3 years without trying to get the most I can out of this space. That includes community, that includes friends, and that, of course, includes my career. As far as the algorithm goes, you're 100% right. Our most successful videos, the videos that are shared with the most people, are the videos that have catchy thumbnails, successful titles, albeit at times a bit clickbaity, although I do try to be responsible with how we use that. And they're covering topics, games, typically Kickstarters, because they get the most clicks on YouTube. Isn't that strange that the content that you hate us for is also the content that performs the best, which means it's the content that's being shared to you? Have you seen our top 10 list? Have you watched our Right For You, Wrong For You reviews? Have you watched me unbox and do overviews of games that I've purchased myself? Are you going to watch our 18xx gameplay, right? Have you watched our vlogs on the weekends or our Shelf or Sell series where we dig through and tell you every game we're getting rid of, keeping, every game that's came in that we're backing? What have you watched? What haven't you watched? And I understand it should not be your responsibility to watch and digest every piece of content on our channel, but we put out daily content. We put out like an average of like 15 videos a week. So I get it. I hear you. I completely agree and understand. But the reality of this conversation is that we're all working with limited information. You don't know me. You don't know my history. I don't know you. I don't know how many games you've played. I don't know what you're looking for in this hobby space or the perfect way to communicate with you. I have a very blunt tool. I have a hammer, which is the camera sitting in front of me, and I can talk to it. And I can try to communicate to you. And then it goes through 17 other channels, and you're watching it with 13 other distractions, and the odds are you're going to pick up the wrong message. And then the odds are someone else will watch it, and they'll get the right one. I am sorry I'm not more effective at being a communicator. I wish I was. I wish this thread didn't exist. Right? Sharon Lee, responding to an older post from the underscore person, the not nothing. Same, check out any Kickstarter through and you'll see Quackalope. They shill for anything as long as they get exposure. Personally, not a fan of the overly theatrical monologues and clickbait titles. That's what not nothing wrote. And then Sharon Lee wrote, Quackalope was okay in the beginning. He did a really good interview with Elizabeth Hargrave, and I instantly subscribed. Not long after that, he went all clickbait and overly theatrical, like you said, and that's when I unsubscribed. For the record, I was probably more theatrical before that time period than I am now. I'm much more myself now. It's weird being on camera. But again, I don't have an expectation of you being aware of that because you discovered me after Elizabeth Hargrave, right? That was a great video. I had a great time filming and teaching Wingspan, and guess what? We still do that as much as possible with as many content creators, as many publishers, as many people as we can. James Vincent is responding to Richard Ham, who respond to Caroline Black. And James, you were kind of here for that whole thing, but let's go ahead and dig into what James said. I appreciate seeing a direct reply from Rhado to the random slandering. I used to watch a good majority of his videos myself, but my tastes changed, and what I was looking for changed with it. Although it makes sense to treat a hobby that is supposed to be enjoyable and fun as such a show/talk about games that you like, rather than those that you don't. But sometimes I'm looking for an out. Sometimes I'm looking for a reason not to buy a game A and save my money for game B. That's where I enjoy both Board Game Co. and Room and Board's perspectives. Alex from Board Game Co. does a great job putting things into perspective on a financial value and potential resale of the games, which I have done several times over in the past year since I began to run out of both shelf space and money, and can't remember his name. Room and Board does an even better job and just trying to break his viewers out of the endless hype train that crowdfunding generates. That's awesome. I think there's a real problem in our industry with the way that brand new people who fall in love with board games support every Kickstarter that comes out. I've done it, and I've been looped back into the cycle multiple times. I understand people's frustration around that, and I totally agree with that. I have not found an effective way to diagnose or address that issue on our channel. If you look at our Kingdom Death video that we did on the buyer's guide for Black Friday, it'd be a good reference point for how I've done it for some things in the past, or the Before You Back series, or 5 Reasons Not to Back. We've experimented with these things, and honestly, a lot of them have been negatively received. Kingdoms Forlorn is an excellent example of a game that I spent 40 plus hours digging into, did a thorough review, in my opinion, comparing it to Kingdom Death. Granted, got some things wrong on the way, and I reached out to the creators to try to rectify that as much as possible. And a lot of people backed the game based off of our coverage. And we also got a lot of people in the Kickstarter comments and a lot of people on our videos telling us that we were unfair, that we were unqualified, that we were, a collection of names that I'm not going to repeat. And that made me go oh, great, should I put 40 hours into a thing that I'm excited about to cover it and be told that I look like a dick online? I don't know. You tell me that question. Would you put 40 hours into that? So, let's keep going. John B. It boggles me. Both of them did not impress. I ignore their content when the tube, now, rarely presents them. I'm sure they have their fans. We do have some fans. Perfectly fine with you making a decision around the people that you consume. Forrest Dunson. Wow, so much negativity here. They all seem to be pretty decent people, even if I may not always agree with their tastes and style. It's simple enough just not to watch. Also, Quack and Board Game Co. aren't the same. They're friends who collaborate on each other's channels quite often, just as any number of other YouTube content providers do as well. Getting upset because they hype up advanced copies of games they're jazzed about is so weird. Same with Rhado. None of them have ever made me waste my money because I can figure out on my own whether or not something looks interesting to me. Some of us board gamers actually enjoy most of the games we play, which I know seems odd to an internet site where the majority like to poo-poo other people's likes and generally seem to have incredibly narrow tastes. Personally, I'd rather spend time with them and their overly excited enjoyment than the endless curmudgeonly posters who complain incessantly. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just read through the comments in Geek and Madness's poll currently running. Forrest, I appreciate it. Thanks for being a fan. Thanks for popping in here and explaining some things and coming to our defense a little bit. I would love to hang out with you as well. I am sorry that you felt it necessary to engage in this comment thread on our behalf. I really appreciate it, though. Frederick Westerfield. responding to K. Nyler, K. Nyler said, overly theatrical is a good way to describe it. Unnecessary pauses for drama. Frederick said, I don't know this channel, but from the way to describe him, I'm picturing Richmond from the IT Crowd, and I would totally watch that. And there's a little image here with a long, drawn out, dead stare and gaze into the camera. Cool. Hey, sorry that you found us this way. Thanks for being here. Adam Cowlin, responding to Kane Nyler. Now, this is an old post, so I might read a little bit of it, so you'll be here. Not sure this is the right place to discuss it, but Quackalope ever just show up in people's recommended YouTubes sometime last year. This is the original post from the beginning, so I will jump forward. For me, my go-to is always Dice Tower. Then John Gets Games, then Rodney Smith, then Rhado. If none of these are available, I'll most likely skip the game or watch whatever is available if I'm really interested. Quackalope is okay, but he's not my go-to. He's done some Zombicide and other CMON stuff lately, so he's probably grown in popularity a bit. Yeah, we've absolutely continued to grow in popularity. It's been, this last year is accumulation of the last 3 years. We've put in a ton of work. We continue to put in a ton of work. Our team is growing, and the more successful our channel does, the more random people will kind of come across it, and the more YouTube will share it. That's what we're trying to trigger in the algorithm. You see, behind the scenes, you can see the metrics of how many impressions your channel gets, how many impressions YouTube is giving them organically, and impressions that your channel is getting on its own. It's this kind of metric or algorithm puzzle that you're always trying to solve. Impressions are anytime someone scrolls past or sees a video, like you guys have experienced. And so for us, we are trying to make YouTube share our content with a wider audience that is not our subscribers as much as possible. Right now, that's something like 55 to 60% of the content we put out is shared to people that we have no control over, right? It's not people that have chosen to watch our stuff, which means there's a chance they come across some of the stuff that looks like all we do is Kickstarter coverage the first 3 times they see our content. Along with that, there's a back-end algorithm that I can see, which is the click-through rate. Every individual video is tracked based on the number of people that see an impression and then click on an impression. The more successful videos that have a great thumbnail, great title, that get more clicks, result in YouTube not only sharing them more, but that click-through rate being even higher, which continues to push the organic and pushed promotions, right? The pushed impressions. So for me, when we post a video on something like Russian railroads, or Isle of Cats or Patchwork, and those videos have a 1.5% click-through rate, that even if it gets 1,200 views, that is a failed video. That means that not only are people not interested in that content, they're not clicking on it. And YouTube then makes our channel worse because of that. It's why a lot of channels reach 25,000 subscribers in our space and stop, because they don't engage with an audience, and the audience doesn't engage with their content. They have their core fan base, but that doesn't lead to growth. The puzzle for us is, how do we manufacture and create content that is not only in everyone's conversation, right, on the corner of everyone's mouth, has interesting and inviting content that people want to click for because they enjoy what we're creating here, has a great thumbnail and has a great title that makes that click-through rate be something like 8%, right, or 14%. Like in the stuff that we've done that have been the most clickbaity on the channel, our click-through rate was anywhere from 14 to 18% when starting out, which is why they got 14, 15,000 views on them, because they just spread, right? And we scaled back from that. Like, if you look at the content that we've put out recently, we have some stuff that is probably leaning more in the direction of clickbait than some people are comfortable with, but nothing near where we got the backlash from originally. And so for context around that, we get, like, a good video for us gets a 5 to 8% click-through rate. I'm curious to see what this one is. Maybe I'll leave a pinned comment or something just letting you all know. But yeah, our hope is that people watch our content. That's about it. Keith R. Responding in again. Such negativity. I'd never heard of this channel until this thread. Watched half a dozen videos just out of curiosity. Tried to find ones with different hosts, and I really enjoyed them. There's not a lot out there with different hosts because it's always me. So sorry, I am the Quackalope. I don't get the clickbait comments and trying to get exposure. That's part of the point of it, doing things if that's your job. I hope it's rooted in love for games, but if you or a team is going to take the time, the hours and hours to film, edit, publish content, and buy all the high equipment to make it even appear half decent, I would think that you'd want to try to find people who watch it, like, subscribe, etc. I can't think of a single semi-regular YouTube content creator that doesn't slip in a like and subscribe request for topics I find myself watching. Of course, they are doing at least part of this to get paid for videos, though YouTube, etc. Whoever is going to their job tomorrow and saying, "Know what? I just love taking hours and hours to do something. No need to pay me. I know. I'm not ... I guess it's easier just to jump on someone or a channel as a whole, but in the end, it's just thoughts about games. And I thought this channel tried to do something in a slightly different way, and I thought the variety of style was nice." Keith, thanks for checking out the channel. Glad you found some stuff that you appreciate. I think some of the people's criticisms there around concepts like clickbait are totally fair. We have stepped over the line in areas that I wish we'd maybe been more tactful in, or I'd been smarter in. I have led this ship astray in a few regards, and we try to learn from those mistakes, and we try to continue creating content and moving forward. But I appreciate your defense. I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate you giving us a chance, despite kind of the nature of this thread, right? Sorry about that. Anders Isakeen, responding to Jonathan Duncan. I don't remember what Jonathan said, so let's go ahead and read that. "I feel like part of the key is overcoming YouTube's algorithms to find fresh content instead of popular content. That said, all YouTube seems to have to recommend me." Okay, I get it now. Anders said, "Now that is a Venn diagram worthy of research. The combination of young strangers announcing pregnancies and Minecraft." I guess some of the larger Minecraft channels have people that are maybe getting to the point of starting a family now. Congratulations to them. Daniel Edwards, "Not a fan of Kickstarter shilling videos or the lengthy stream of conscious rambles that make up most of the content." Daniel, I appreciate it. I assume you just jumped to this point in the video then. This is a long, rambly video. I'm not advertising any Kickstarters, but I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate that you don't like my content. Feel free to be a part of the community if you think you could improve what we do, or leave valuable feedback to what we do. But that being said, totally not an issue. Ray, "For me, the clickbait says two things for me personally. You are dumb enough to fall for this and will watch it because I titled my videos something like 'She Left Me.'" There we are. That's one of them. About 8 months ago, that was a experiment that stepped over the line. Absolutely. "I value those that haven't subbed more than one that has. As far as the negativity, I hate to be that guy, but we almost all play a part in that here. I see someone comment out negativity and on a subject equally mundane, fire off, haha. Post about reviews. You guys need to calm down. Wow, so negative. Post about whether you can shuffle one card. I hope you all get scurvy." So he's just saying that he doesn't like the clickbait stuff that we did, and this is a great example of a way that experimenting and kind of playing around with clickbait in a way that I thought was fun and funny definitely lost us some community members. And I hope maybe we can regain those people as time goes on, as they see more of us, as they kind of explore this hobby space. But if we don't, I think that's entirely justifiable. Ray, I think the fact that you remember that title proves that point, right? I think that's fair. And yeah, I mean, the internet is good at being negative, and it's also good at being amazing. It's kind of a balance. Vulcan DB. I liked Quackalope at first. Great comment, great start, which seemed to spring out of nowhere, but stopped watching it and feel a bit manufactured to me. I don't watch Rhado these days either. I tend to watch much smaller channels apart from Dice Tower. Of course, money comes into it at some point, but I like a channel where I can really feel the passion of the hobby. Some of the wargame channels are brilliant. A lot of effort is put into some of them for very little reward. It's more like a labor of love than a business opportunity or a rush to get the latest hot games out and up for the most viewers ASAP. Of course, Dice Tower is very much business, but they have very wide coverage, and I like the banter and personalities. There's probably some nostalgia too, as Dice Tower was probably the first board game channel I watched. Tom is a likable guy as well. Vulcan, I think it's completely fair, and I think it's fair for you to not like my content. I wish we were at the position where we could do what Dice Tower does. we're not. I mean, at the end of the day, we're me, and every friend I can talk into coming on camera possible over the course of the last 3 years. So keep that in mind. I have a variety of people that come onto the channel, and all of them are just people that I have met, have been fans of the channel, that have been friends in my personal life, and I need people to play games with, right? That's the goal of all of this. I don't know how to address the comment about wishing that it was for the love of the hobby. Would it be for the love of the hobby more if there was no business, if there was no career, if I posted one video a week and had to work another full-time job? I get to do what I love more and more successfully, specifically because I've tried to treat this as a business. I've tried to make this a successful career. I don't really know another way to operate. I mean, I've been a freelancer for the past 9 years. I'm 29 now. I was 20 when I graduated from college, or 22 when I graduated from college, 20 when I started my photography business. And I've been able to do what I love for my entire career because I treat it like a profession. And Tom treats it like a business as well. Like Dice Tower is not just a bunch of people that love the hobby. They started as that, and we started as that. And they laid the foundation for where we've grown so quickly. It's just they had a longer run-up because they had to build every single brick in this road. So we've benefited from the work that they've put in. But yeah, just some food for thought. Like, I wish the war gamers that you mentioned got more reward for what they do, because I agree they do incredible productions. And I don't know how. I don't know how you do this if you don't see an end that results in some type of success or career, or if you're just not wealthy enough that you're able to do it. And I'm neither of those. I'm not the type of person that would put 60 hours a week or could put 60 hours a week into something like this if I didn't see a future that was bright to me. And I'm also not the type of person that is successful or wealthy enough to be able to do this just for the love of the industry. But I can tell you this, if someone wrote me a blank check or I won the lottery the next day, guess what I would continue doing? I would continue playing games, and I would continue doing coverage. And I would fly out every single content creator that I like, and I would throw a massive convention for all the people that are subscribers and fans of this channel, and I would give away countless numbers of games. You put me in a position like that, and watch what I do. I still do this. I do this because this is my dream, right? My goal. That's the short of it. Jay responding to Keith R. Keith was talking about the negativity and talking about the confusion around the clickbait. It was a recent comment. Jay said, sometimes people have negative experiences, and those are just as valid and important as positive ones, as long as people aren't just being jackasses, which no one is. There's nothing wrong with shaming a negative opinion on something, or sharing a negative opinion on something. Jay, I think you're 100% right. People are entitled to their feelings and their emotions, and while I don't think the internet is the best environment to display, communicate, or share those, I do think that they are reasonable, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to go through this thread and respond to every comment that's here, right? Have a conversation with you all. Jay, or Keith, responding to Jay, which I just responded to, said, all true, good points, thanks. Yeah, Keith, we're on the same page there. James Tang. This discussion is timely. I was on the fence about Earth and backed the Kickstarter campaign yesterday in the final hours after watching a Quackalope Right For You, Wrong For You video. I was concerned about the stunning visuals. I was concerned that the stunning visuals were covering up poor mechanics. He had 2 other reviewers with him. Well, he was the only one who mentioned the visual aspect, and he didn't even like it. They provided information about the mechanics, and that was helpful. I'm glad that I gave him a second chance because I've watched some of his previous videos and found them grating. I don't routinely watch any channels these days. There are a lot of reviewers. They are only going to review games that they enjoy, and they are going to be positive. I watched the only how to play video available for a game by someone who thought that being negative and juvenile was edgy. It was off-putting. No one can tell whether you will like a game. Videos take time and effort to make, of course. The big reviewers are being paid on top of getting preview games. On every Kickstarter, I check which reviewers are featured. Reviewers make a huge difference in whether a campaign funds. The bigger they are, though, the more likely they're turning down games that they don't want to review. If you don't have someone's style or disagree with their preferences, then don't watch. If you don't like someone's style or disagree with their preferences, then don't watch. Jamie, I'm glad you found our channel. I'm glad you found some of our coverage with Earth. I'm glad we were able to kind of showcase it. That was a good example of a review video where at the very beginning I let people know that I'd done a sponsored gameplay in collaboration with the content. And the other two people, Shira and just genuinely a friend of mine, a subscriber to the channel who I invited up, a Patreon member of mine who I invited up to spend a weekend hanging out and playing games. We're given free reign to break down and analyze the game. We wanted to give you as much accurate information as possible. It puts us in a weird camp. Like, if the audience told me that they wanted a critical review, right, of every game we do any coverage of at all, or any game that we do, let's say sponsored gameplay videos. If we do a sponsored gameplay video, do we then do a critical review of it? It's a weird balancing act, because I don't know how to communicate to you, the audience, other than the way that I've done it, that I'm trying to be honest in the review. No matter what, we're kind of attaching a double-edged sword. If we agree that we need to find some way to make a profit off of our channel so I can do this as a full-time career, then how do I navigate that? Do I do a sponsored gameplay video and then give you a critical review, which I could let every publisher we ever work with know that that was the agreement we made with the audience? Do I do that, though, and still get called a shill or get told that I'm not being accurate? Kingdoms Forlorn, where I was critical and gave gameplay and covered as much as possible, still had people saying that I was wrong and a liar and deceitful because I was negative. All I can do, the best I can do for you, the audience, is to be as honest as possible, to share as much as I can, to let you know who I am, to open the door as wide. Like, I drop my phone number. Like, that's what I can do. It's all a desperate attempt to communicate through this device. And it is impossible in some situations and complicated at best. Okay. Oddity is responding to Richard Ham, who is responding to Caroline Black. Richard was responding to the person who said it feels like he's sold out. And then Richard responded saying, show me where I've misled anyone. And then Oddity has said, I don't believe you lie or mislead, but your energy and enthusiasm is both what makes you successful and what makes it come off as misleading, I suspect. I think when you rank games later on and give more concrete thoughts and rankings to what you played, also can surprise people sometimes when a game that you showed enthusiasm during your video ranks lower than expected for someone that is excited for the game. I've heard Tom Vassell talk about this too, before, when he'll rate a game on an 8 and people will be surprised and think he doesn't like it. Many times, these things come down to people wanting validation for their decisions or things they like. Sometimes, though, I think there are YouTubers who turn their channel into Kickstarter ads instead of representation of their personality. To be clear, I've watched a little Quackalope, and I don't think that's the case with him. I think he's probably more of a lower-cost, well-produced content creator. Man vs. Meeple, to me, is a better example of a channel that is mostly void of personality and just as well-produced ad production company for games. Again, I don't think it's fair to talk about any content creators here. I appreciate the response to Rhado. I appreciate the comments here. Yeah, everyone kind of has to read and judge for themselves. It's a complicated business creating content. Get me a Nike deal, please. I would love that. Base Gesture. Responding to Jamie Tang, videos take time and effort to make. Base Gesture responded, some videos take time and effort to make, and some videos are just point and ramble. And then Mark Twain, I don't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. He quoted Mark Twain, I suppose. Base Gesture. Gesture. I assure you this video is a point and ramble, whereas most of the videos on our channel take anywhere from about 6 to 8 hours to produce, and we put out daily content at a minimum. Dean L. I think there's a lot of criticism here. I think a lot of the criticism here is valid. Quackalope is a bit mansplaining. Alex is obsessed with resale values. But I still kind of like them. It feels honestly them being them. It doesn't feel contrived. I don't find them to be overly positive about Kickstarters either. They just cover a lot, and they come from the perspective of people with a fair amount of disposable income, which, yeah, is not great if you're someone that can barely afford the big Kickstarter project a year. But if you back like maybe one a month, their analysis is quite useful. I appreciate that, Dean. And just a comment that I made earlier on in this video, please keep in mind that what we cover and what we do is working towards, in Alex's case, and for me, my full-time career. And so I don't have a ton of disposable income, but I have enough, and I'm grateful for the position that we're in, that I can invest in and hopefully make a return on that investment when the games actually arrive. Oftentimes we're backing things that we're excited about and that we plan to cover here on the channel, because we can't always guarantee that a publisher is just going to ship us every game that comes out. So we'll back it on Kickstarter, we'll support it, it'll show up, and we'll be able to display it. And board games tend to hold their value as well. So let's say we make a bad back on Marvel Zombies, for instance. If I hate that game, which I won't, but if I hate that game, I could sell it if push came down to shove to get that investment back out, which kind of goes back into the business. It's all sort of cyclical. In Board Game Co.'s stance, when he got into this hobby, he actually built a business around buying and trading games because he found he was investing too much. That's why a lot of his stuff is focused on the value, because that is where he has existed in this hobby space for many a year. Page number 3. Let's grab some Red Bull, a common thing here on the channel. And let's keep going. I think we're charged enough I can remove the cable there. Okay. Julman Tulayo. I don't like Quackalope, and actually most of the new gaming sites that have popped up, I do like Rhado, but he doesn't cover most of the games I like or I'm interested in. My other go-tos are either inactive or play games. They don't do unboxings and bullshit. They just focus on a playthrough, and I love them for that. I feel that I'm being bombarded with buy this all over the place. I like to see playthroughs because I sometimes don't get the opportunity to play as much as I want, so I watch them play instead. It's very entertaining, and I find it helps with some rules questions or ambiguity I might have. Julman, we can't guarantee that we can help with the rules questions because honestly, I'm not sure I've ever played a rule right after posting content on the channel, but we put out like half of our content, our gameplay videos. I actually got into this hobby space because I wanted to watch gameplay videos that I enjoyed, and after consuming all of the content Shut Up and Sit Down had put out, I ended up deciding to start creating my own. That's why we're here. In almost every Kickstarter coverage that we do, we try to do a adjacent gameplay video. So please keep that in mind. I appreciate that you don't like me. You didn't directly reference why you don't like me. I assume it has to do with this thread to some degree. But we do a lot of gameplays. I hope you give them a second shot and maybe ignore all our other content. But we do have fun, and we invite anyone and everyone to come play games with us, because that's sort of the point. Let's scroll down a little bit more. The nothing, which is the blank name, is responding to Jamie Tang, or is responding to Base Gesture, who is then responding to Jamie Tang. Base Gesture is the one that said some videos take time and effort, and some videos are just point and ramble. To add to this, Not Gaming says, sometimes being able to afford professional equipment can take you a long way. Yeah, I mean, I have professional equipment because I had a professional career before both the pandemic and deciding to pursue this as my full-time. Like I've said a few times now, I was a full-time wedding photographer, event photographer in DC. This is what I've done for my career. And if all of this got pulled out from under me, I would go back out and I'd be able to find clients fairly quickly in kind of what I do. But I want to do this. I want to be here. Calibrating. Responded for the first time. I tend to prefer the channels that produce a couple videos a week. When they start producing one a day, it starts to feel mass-produced. I like handcrafted, well-curated videos, meaning less frequency. I'm not talking quality. It becomes like shopping in a big box store versus farmer's market. In a big box store, I'm just overwhelmed with stuff. I might even buy stuff I don't even watch. When it comes to Kickstarter, I'd really like to hear about a few a month. I never wade through those long lists every other week. Oftentimes, when a channel starts bringing in more people, they're pretty much jumped the shark for me, though it's not always true. Guest speakers are fun. I particularly liked Professor Meg as a guest on Quack. She brought in a different perspective on games, and I'd like to hear more. Preferences aside, these people clearly work hard. Calibrating, I think that's perfectly fair. I don't know that we are... If I could do 3 videos a week and be successful at that, I would love to. The system that we work with, the algorithms that we work around, recommend posting as much high-quality content as possible. We do put in a ton of work and a ton of effort into every video that we release here on the channel, and I'd love to have as many guests as possible here to feature. Professor Meg, it was an honor to be able to have her come share and kind of just give her a platform to talk to you all, the audience. And I want to do that with as many different people as I can. If you watch my channel over the years, I've invited designers, publishers, guests, friends, other content creators, Patreon members, fans of the channel, all here to play games. That's the heart and soul of it. So as we grow, as we get more and more opportunities, if I was in the position Dice Tower was in, I'd be flying someone in every week to feature them, share their games, and it wouldn't even be a conversation about me anymore. If you want to make that possible, let me know. Let's transform what we do here. Because if no one shows up and helps me do that, I'm going to keep working and doing what I'm doing now, which is trying to get there. That's what I'm working towards. If you want to know about the heart and soul and the eventual dream of Quackalope, I want to have people featured here with me, playing games, talking about games, free from any obligations. I'd love that. It's not the reality I live in. I'm not rich. I'm not successful enough. I'm not any of those things. I'm just a dude that loves board games, that sits behind a camera and has made it far enough that I get threads like this about me. That's where I've made it, which I suppose means I've made it somewhere, right? JTR. I find that Quackalope and Board Game Co. are better at showcasing their channels instead of showcasing games. Too much content and not enough substance. Plus, I disagree with their opinions, so now I stick to succinct playthroughs and instructions. Some of my favorites include Watch It Played, Before You Play, Watch It Played, best supplement/alternative to the rulebook hands down. Before You Play, calm, inviting atmosphere, good rules overview, and good instructional, especially for heavy gamers. John Gets Games, fantastic instructionals. He does a really good job at showcasing the decision-making process. Rhado, on par with JGG, John's Gets Games, but Rhado has a good way of conveying the more right-brained oohs and ahs of decisions in the game. I've also become fond of others like Modern Cardboard and Game in a Nutshell. Awesome. JTR, thanks so much for sharing some alternatives for people to subscribe to. I hope people in the thread have been able to find some other channels that they like a lot more. There's a wide world of board game content creators out there. We are not the only option. I welcome you to go find and source them. Base Gesture, responding to Keith R. Keith R. Is specifying that, of course, they are doing at least part of this to get paid for the videos through YouTube, etc. Who's going to the job tomorrow and saying, know what, I just love taking hours and hours to do something, no need to pay me. I know I'm not. Base Gesture responds, I think it's great when people can make a living on a market niche they found, but I disagree with the argument. Lots of people volunteer their time in virtual and real-life communities. The world doesn't have a responsibility to make YouTube board gaming reviewer a career. It doesn't. It doesn't. You're absolutely right. I am not under the impression that anyone owes me anything. But are you under the impression that anyone owes you the content that we're creating? Right? Because it's a double-ended conversation there. Who's going to make the content if there isn't a potential career here? Sure, some people might do it for free, but where's the production quality? Where's the consistency? Where's the content that's going to be put out? And if there is a pathway for us to make it a career, are we wrong for pursuing that? We might be. I don't know. I mean, there's an argument to be made that maybe we should keep this only as a hobby and not blend our passions and what we love to do with our career and more professional world. But I am not of the opinion that if there's a pathway towards making this my full-time permanently, I should not pursue that. And for the record, when we started 3 years ago, the first year and a half, 2 years, go watch the video I put out when the pandemic hit. We had nothing and I just lost a whole lot more. And here's the reality of that situation. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to drop Quackalope. I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep it up. I committed blindly because I thought I'd be somewhere cool in 3 to 5 years. We're someone really cool. This is amazing. I'm so grateful for this. Like, this is such an incredible opportunity we have to share and cover and build community and expand this hobby. This is no longer some niche that people aren't invited to, right? Like this is a thing where video game industries are getting involved and Target is holding games. Barnes & Noble has better selections than most game stores nowadays. How does that happen? And why should we not try to pursue a career in this? Just like the indie publisher, just like just like anyone in this space. Okay. Julman is going to respond to JTR, who we just read, who read through and listed a bunch of fantastic content creators that everyone should check out. Julman says, I want to add JPlay, One Stop Co-op Shop, Rolling Solo, and Mystic Eye Games. And even though there is no more content, I always catch older episodes of Tabletop with Will Wheaton. Beast of War can have a good playthrough from time to time, but there is something about the audio that kills me. Julman, thanks for tossing in some more names that people should go check out. It's sad that things like Will Wheaton have not been successful enough in our industry to survive. Everyone that is nostalgic for that type of content, our industry can't support that. If it could have, Will Wheaton and that whole crew would have continued doing it. If it could have, Geek and Sundry wouldn't have dried up on the vine. Like, if it could exist, it would. It doesn't. It doesn't because we haven't built it, because we're not big enough. We haven't built a platform. We haven't invited enough people in. We haven't found a way for those type of things to be sustainable. That's what I'm dealing with. That's what I'm involved in. Excuse me there. I've been reading for a little while. My tea is completely cold. Torquillo. Disclaimer. This is my subjective opinion about videos of Quackalope and BoardGame Co., which have become ubiquitous in the crowdfunding video space. I don't mean to judge them as being humans, not for 1 second. Quackalope. He's trying hard to cultivate a serious image, but doesn't have the insight to back it up. It comes across as commercial and affected. BoardGame Co. Alex does offer some insights, but from a consumer YouTuber perspective, not from a game design perspective. His videos can be thoughtful and self-reflective, but now he's doing his channel full-time. He's not yet. He's still working 2 full-time jobs and has a wife and 4 children. He's churning out the same brand of shallow promotional reviews. They're certainly not promotional. Alex has no ties to any company in the industry. Either way. If you want to learn about crowdfunded games, there's at least videos I'll watch on the subject. Unfortunately, theirs are often the first videos to be released. A lot of people like their work, and long may it continue. But I don't have the stomach for advertising dressed up in critique. Trujillo, so this is an interesting perspective. This is the same thing that I was just talking about recently. How do I compete with this? If we are going to do content, and do content as much as possible, and I get it if you think I'm not qualified to be talking about the games I'm talking about. All I am is a dude that's talking about my personal experience, and I've played a couple thousand games in my lifetime. That's it. That's all you have. If I sound unqualified, take it or leave it. But how could I do critical reviews in any shape or form at this point and have you believe for a second that it's accurate? Like that last line there. I don't have the stomach for advertising dressed up as critique. I don't know how to fully engage with that. Are we advertising? Are we critique? Are we using critique as a way to market to you? Yeah. Just a thought. Keith R. responding to Base Gesture, who is responding to Keith R. Keith R. is saying that, of course, they're doing their part to get paid. Base Gesture responds that it's amazing they can make a living in the market. It just isn't owed to them. And Keith R. says, I never said that it did, but I also don't think it's a taboo or a bad thing to try to get compensated for a job. I don't think there is an expectation not to tip a waiter because folks at the food pantries for free, because folks help at food pantries for free all the time. To pay a vet because, hey, shouldn't you just love cats and dogs anyway? Yeah, I think that's a decent comparison. It doesn't take away the fact that it's the same type of argument that I have, right? If there's a way for us to do it, then are we wrong for trying to pursue that? Not Nothing Gaming, the blank name again. No, but if the waiter keeps showing up every 5 minutes with food behind a curtain, trying to entice me to order more and stay longer so the bill will be higher and their tip will increase, even though the chef is an amateur and the food is under-seasoned, I'm going to get annoyed and stop wanting to go there. Yes, that is exactly the point. I cannot deceive my audience. I cannot sell you a sale that won't perform. I have a responsibility not only to you, but also to myself, to the channel, to perform as well as possible, to let you know the best games possible, to be as critical, as thorough, to show off gameplays, previews, how to plays, to teach you and let you analyze whether or not a game is going to be right or wrong for you. That's the concept. If I keep giving you a bill of sale that doesn't write, like if I keep giving you a check that bounces, you're not going to watch. Now, the question I have for you and for other people, have I sold you that bill of sale? Have you purchased a list of games, in this example, have you purchased plates of food from me that have not been good, that have deceived you in terms of what they were offering, what they were presented to, right? If that's the case, I'd love to know when and where that was so I can learn from those mistakes. But I would challenge that most people don't like my presentation. They don't like my association with companies. They don't like us doing Kickstarter coverage. They don't like the fact that we are some of the first out with coverage because we work our butts off and because from time to time we get exclusive access. I get that. But if you're not buying the food, how do you know the chef's an amateur? How do you know the food's not good? How do you know I'm only doing it to increase my tip? All right? There's a few different vectors there. The skirted meeple, responding to Victor. Victor is the one that said, not turning this into a bashing post, but full disclosure, I really do not like Quackalope and Board Game Co. So let's see what the skirted meeple says. I don't know. I've watched their content, speaking of Jesse and his girlfriend Shira, and Alex and his wife, and it's evident when they don't like a game, or it's just an okay or fine or good game. In fact, I think they can be pretty blunt. Maybe they don't do that for paid promotions. I don't watch a lot of their Kickstarter shilling because the games aren't my type, but I did watch Earth, for instance, and thought that it was very good. But I feel like I can get the real deal. In Alex's recent Hamlet review, he listed a laundry list of complaints in his What I Liked segment, and then said, now let's shift to the segment of what I don't like or think doesn't work. Laugh out loud. I think he's more into the intellectual and analytical part of gaming. I think he likes games for the perspective. It's his personality. He's not a light and fun, whimsical guy. Rhado, you kind of change the goal posts to whether you are purposefully misleading people. I think the response of many viewers to your approach is a risk you took, but where you're at may be a worthwhile trade-off. Well, I don't credit your reviews anymore. Sadly, used to. I do appreciate your gameplays. Thinker Thamer are still staying the course and very authentic, as are Meepletown and Foster the Meeple. Before You Play, I also think are authentic enough. Neverboard Gaming tells it like it is, but not sure if for the promos. So, the Skirted Meeple. Thank you for your feedback. I would like to solve that puzzle, right? I would like to continue creating content and be as genuine, as honest, and not only be that, but also figure out how to communicate that to you, the audience. We're figuring that out. It is a balancing act back and forth, and we have made mistakes along the way, but that is our goal. I appreciate that you like some of our content. I think it's also fair that people are here criticizing some of our other content. We certainly don't try to shill for games, but there could be a better way for us to go about content and a better way for us to communicate with the audience. Let's continue. Skirted Meeple again, responding to Dogfish. As for the idea that people are shills, etc., I can't blame people for going about trying to get something out of their time and passion spent in something. So this is someone that's saying, why shouldn't people be paid for the work that they're putting in? And the Skirted Meeple responds, I think this is how they fund their game purchases and equipment for use for their channels. I don't think paid subscribers can be enough, depending on how big they want to go. I do agree. I think they are going to do Kickstarter intros. I appreciate more of what Quackalope did for Earth and Alex did for Hamlet. Here's in detail how this game works, and here's some reactions we had to it. I think if we hear the rare, okay, this ticks all the boxes, like they sometimes say, or this is amazing, then that's great. They just lose me when everything is fantastic, people. I don't think 150 games a year should be fantastic. Just wow, 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 people. That's just me. I think that's reasonable, and we have to figure out how to analyze and communicate that as effectively as possible. Ultimately, the goal, the Skirted Meeple, the goal is to let you know what will and won't work for you, and every single gaming group is different. So if we target our audience and just give you the criticisms, right, that would be right for you or wrong for you, then we're missing the larger picture. It's a balancing act of figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what works for ourselves, what doesn't work for the wider community, and so on and so forth. The Skirted Meeple again, talking to Jamie Tang, who is the person that commented on Earth and how our Right For You, Wrong For You video convinced them that they would enjoy the game. The Skirted Meeple says, excuse me, it is shocking what 2 hours and 30 minutes of talking will do to your voice. Nerd Shelves. The guy of the pair, woman was more willing, essentially admitted to only wanting to be positive, not to piss off publishers. So they won't even do a keep or call episode. Which reminds me that I love board game ramblings. They destroyed Dice Realms, laugh out loud, and you want honesty, watch some Broken Meeple reviews. He will hammer his games. See Batoku review as a modest hammering. I just posted about Quackalope's Earth preview before seeing your comment. I wholeheartedly agree that it was really helpful and felt authentic, and what I would want out of a preview. Cool. So there's some people that are enjoying the stuff we're making. Joseph Pugh. The amount of negativity in this thread is just a bit depressing. The only problem I have with Quackalope is I have to wonder about his own well-being or enjoyment when he pulls out stuff so fast. I know the effort it takes, but anything I have ever learned about a game he is talking about has been accurate. I'm not sure how either his or Alex's talking points would be considered shallow, as some in this thread have implied. Genuine question. What do you want a reviewer or previewer to do? I'm also going to side with Rhado a bit. Putting time and effort into a video to be negative is exhausting, and that's not even counting the amount of time you have to drain from multiple people to play a game you don't like in the first place. Over in the video game space, there is an entire subgroup for YouTubers that thrive in negativity. They blight the whole pool with their toxicity, and I promise you that you don't want to be a thing in here. Now, reviewers should have genuine criticisms, but from what I've seen of Rhado's content, his aim is a bit different, and I can respect someone fostering a purely positive space in a world where negativity and hot takes get the clicks. I appreciate the comments, Joseph. I don't know that I have anything specific to add that I haven't added in this 2-hour-long video. I do appreciate the comment that anything you've learned from a game about us has been accurate. That's sort of the point, right? That's the goal that we're trying to achieve, is being as accurate as possible. And I appreciate your question. What do you want us to do? That's kind of the whole conversation here, right? Like, that's the whole heart and soul of it. What do you want us to do? And what are you willing to do? Are you willing to support content creators? Are you willing to share videos? Are you willing to watch everything we put out? Are you willing to, etc., etc.? It's a hard question, and it's a real question. Are you willing to create content? Like, do it. I mean, either way. Michael Carter. I haven't watched any of the Quackalope or Board Game Co. channels. I will say that I distrust anyone that is always excited and never has anything negative to say. That person is likely lying to you. Michael Carter, I would appreciate it if you would check out any number of our Right For You, Wrong For You videos, 5 Reasons Not to Play, 5 Reasons Not to Play Kingdom Death. Check out our Before You Back series. Take a look at our Shelf or Sell, where we get rid of games that don't work for us. Check out our BGG Top 100 list that has a series of videos that are both positive and negative depending on the game. Take a look at my video on Nemesis, a series that we experimented with called Confirmation Bias, which had a purely negative video and a purely positive video, and wasn't received very well by the community. Let me know. Let me know where we're only positive. The Skirted Meeple, responding to Joseph Pugh, who is the person that we just read that said the amount of negativity here is a bit depressing, and the only problem he had with us was he wonders about my own well-being, which I appreciate at approaching 1 a.m. And I'm going to stay up and finish editing this, by the way. So, the Skirted Meeple says, the purpose, there's only 2 ends to the spectrum. See Broken Meeple and Board Game Ramblings for ability to really critique and come down hard on a game, but not be overly negative channels in any respect. See also Shut Up and Sit Down. Shut Up and Sit Down is a remarkable one-off in our industry. So is Rodney Smith, and so is, in some ways, the Dice Tower. Dice Tower covers everything, and they do an amazing job at that. Rodney Smith and his network now have started covering more hard games, but historically covers how to play videos and does the best in the industry. And Shut Up and Sit Down add comedy and review and critique to their videos. And they're not just board gamers. They have a few other channels that they take part in or actually operate with. You can search them and check them out. Quinn's is in a variety of different channels. And they welcomed me, those 3 channels welcomed me into this hobby space. They're who I'm inspired by, right? They're stories unto their own. If you want to compare me to Shut Up and Sit Down, I'm first off honored, and I appreciate it, and I'm second off flabbergasted that you're under the impression that we can execute on a career or execute on a business model that matches what they did. They started as a writing company. They built this industry from the ground up. I don't have that skill. I don't have that talent. I don't have that comedy. I have what I have. And I'm doing the best I can to capitalize on me. But that is very different from Dice Tower, from Tom, from Rodney, from Shut Up and Sit Down, who are all stars in this space. They laid the foundation that we now get to take advantage of. Let's see here. Who was I just reading? Okay, Joseph Pugh responding to the Skirted Meeple, who we just responded to. Joseph Pugh says, I review games myself. I'm aware of how to critique without being overly negative. But sometimes I get the sense that a lot of folks reading/watching reviews do see it as 2 ends of the spectrum. Love/hate with no nuance in between. This thread is a nice example because both Quackalope and Board Game Co. absolutely have criticisms of games. Thank you. I appreciate that. I have a few criticisms of a few games. Joseph Pugh, who asked the question, genuine question, what do you want a reviewer/previewer to do? And Base Gesture here hops in responding, avoid conflicts of interest, play the game enough times, possibly at different player counts to make an informed review, prepare, give an opinion, explain why, make compromises, make comparisons to alternatives, be careful with my time, avoid redundant or vocacious statements or dead air through planning or editing. Okay, so Base, here's what you just asked, just for the record. Avoid conflicts of interest. In our industry right now, when it comes to YouTube and the amount of people that are willing to monetize us on Patreon or YouTube ad revenue for a successful channel, no one under 100,000 subscribers can make enough money. There is not enough support in this space to sustain that without some other degree of a career, some other source of income coming in. So you just asked for anyone working in this space under 100,000, and likely most people working in this space above 100,000 to work some other career alongside board games, right? With making little to no on the hours that they're spent. So let's establish that, right? You can make only a little bit of money. Play games enough times, possibly at different player counts to make an informed review. That requires the time of you, your friends, your community, learning the game, playing the game, tabling the game. An average board game takes anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to probably learn, including a demo game, and then an hour to 2 hours to continue playing. So at a minimum, let's say 3 to 5 gameplays at varying player counts is a respectable amount. And you might think it needs to be more. You might think it needs to be 10. But we're going to go with a minimum. 3 to 5 gameplays of the same game is going to cost someone anywhere from about 6 to 10 hours of their time. Not only that time, but also the time of their friends who are sitting around the table playing a game for them. And their friends are even less incentivized to be involved in this process because you've at least given the person who is building the channel the chance of a future career, and you've let them make a little bit of money off of the people that will support them on Patreon, which again is not a lot of people when it comes to this community space. It's not enough for us to run on our own. If it was enough for us to run on our own, we would run solely as a Patreon community. So we've separated that. We've just cost someone, let's go to the low end of that, 8 hours of their time just to play the game. They then need to prepare the video. That means setting up the cameras, the tripods, which probably are not permanently set up in their space because it's not what they're doing full time. They need to break down all of this. Invest all the money they just earned over the last year or two, and probably more than they've earned, into the camera equipment that they're using. Decent quality audio, decent quality video, lighting, so on and so forth. The stuff that I have the pleasure of having because I worked as a full-time career photographer and videographer for years in my career to accumulate the stuff that I'm using now. So you've just asked them to not make a lot of money, ask their friends to play the same game time and time again, ask their which at a minimum is only going to happen across the course of a week or two, right? So they're reviewing one game every 2 weeks at this point. You want them to prepare for the content, right? Get the setup, make it look pretty for you. Then give an opinion. Great, well that's easy. They've just spent a couple $1,000 and about 12 hours of their time setting up at this point for no reward. So at this point, they are excited to give their opinion of the game, and they probably don't like it that much because it just costs them so much of their time, energy, and effort. Moving down, explain why. Perfect. Be happy to give a farther explanation of why their opinion exists, but if you don't agree with their opinion based off this thread, and not you specifically, but the more general BGG community now, if you don't agree with their opinion, won't they be compromised in some form? Won't there be some degree of suspect there? Because it almost always exists. Make comparisons to alternatives. Fantastic. So I not only need, for this to be the content that you want, I not only need to work about 12 hours before I start filming the content, spend thousands of dollars getting set up, preparing, getting my script ready, play the game multiple times, which is the time that went into the 12 hours so far. Then I need to film the video, and I need to be able to give you comparisons, which means whatever game this is related to, in your mind, I need to have a repertoire for. And not only a repertoire that I can talk about. Where am I going to get time to play that because you've given me no opportunity to earn an income that is going to be able to sustain myself and God forbid, a family or children or anything like that? Where am I going to be able to play enough games to have a comparison model to let you know if this game is the best Euro, worker placement, deck builder, area control, etc., etc.? Where's the breadth of that content coming from? I mean, I won't add that to the total number, but if we want to talk about maybe 10 games that every game should be compared to, you're talking another 50, 60, 70 hours in this hobby space that someone needs to play. And guess what? I don't necessarily like worker placements. I might be playing one and covering one, but what if I don't like them? Do I still need to play 5 other games to match up with what you have in mind for a fair coverage? Or is it 10? Or is it 20? How much gives me the leverage or the credence in order to talk about a title for you? Moving down, be careful with my time. Great. Avoid redundant or vacacious statements or dead air through planning or editing. So 12 hours to get to the point where they could just sit down and talk. But now you want them to script. Most people don't have the skill, the technology, I certainly don't, to script a video. Meaning they need to spend time, probably anywhere from 2 to 5 hours writing, scripting, prepping, and then they need to learn how to read that script off the camera, which is going to require more equipment. It needs a little reflecting board and everything here, which we have never had and have never used. And on top of that, you then want them to edit and process the video. Do you want a top shot, decent quality audio, multiple camera angles? What are you looking for here? How can I be as careful with your time as possible? Because here's the puzzle. I just spent 20, 25 hours getting prepared and producing a video. We're talking 4 to 6 hours for editing an average video for people that really don't know editing software. You can go faster, certainly, but when people are just starting out, which is usually in this hobby space, that's what you're looking at. So you just asked for 25 to 30 hours of my time. Within the context, the first thing you required was that I not make any money that might compromise me from this space. How is that sustainable? How is that possible? How should anyone ever pursue something in this space if that's what you're asking for them to do? And then on top of that, depending on how many other games I've played, you may validate or invalidate my opinion. And on top of that, I'm releasing maybe one video every week, 2 weeks, or month. Look at Shut Up and Sit Down, for example, who produce some insanely high-end, highly played, highly scripted, highly critical reviews. They release a video a week, if that, with multiple people playing and reviewing and publishing. And they're a unique example. No other content creator is going to do what they've done because they already exist. They're already in that space. So let's set that up as the framework. And then let's knock it down with the fact that half this thread is critiquing or criticizing us for doing our very best to succeed on the platform that we're on. Take away sponsored content, take away relationships with publishers, take away any of that. And we get criticized for unique, catchy titles, especially when we cross the line. I've already admitted that. I've already addressed that. But we get criticized for clickbait. We get told, like I've been walked up to in person, had someone call me the clickbait king. Like that doesn't feel good, right? That sucks. It's just unattainable. It just is. And I don't know the solution there. If I was trying to follow your script, I would have to quit, right? I'd have to shut down the channel. I don't want to shut down the channel. So, I'm talking. Skirted Meeple. Who's responding to Joseph Pugh? Who's responding to the Skirted Meeple? The Skirted Meeple said, this presupposes there are only two ends of the spectrum. You can be critical, but not be overly negative. Joseph Pugh said, I review games myself, but sometimes I get the sense that a lot of folks only believe that there's two ends. And then the Skirted Meeple responds, just for clarification, I wasn't talking about how to critique without being overly negative. I meant that they give negative reviews, but still their channels are not overly negative. But agree with your comments about Quackalope and Board Game Co. The comments were that we absolutely have criticisms of games, which I appreciate. Joseph Pugh, responding to Base Gesture, Joseph Pugh said, I agree with this, but I believe most reviewers already do this, albeit everyone has weak spots, myself included. I definitely think that some need to play games more, while others could do with more editing. There's definitely reviewers I like and those that I don't. It's a hard balance. Is the list that Base gave a list of ultimatums, or is the list that he gave a lot of suggestions? If it was a lot of suggestions, then I agree with every single one of those. I think people should avoid conflicts of interest or disclose them as much as possible. I think people should play the games enough to give you accurate and thorough reviews of them. I think people should prepare. I think people should give their opinion. I think people should explain why their opinion exists, and I think people should be careful with your time. And I would argue that we do all of that on Quackalope to the very best of our ability. And where we have weak spots, we're working on improving. We're trying to adjust, shift, and make things as good as possible. Patrick Hepner. They have become a premier source for those previews because they have a large audience. I have nothing against either of them, and occasionally will watch a video, but I prefer podcasts. That said, to echo what others have said in their replies, I do sometimes question things a bit. Namely, if someone has 2 videos per week, each with, say, 3 games, plus a third video that is a big box preview, that's 7 games per week. These videos probably took a combined 10 to 20 hours to produce, plus a few more hours to create thumbnails, links, promos, etc. Let's assume that they eat and sleep and have chores around the house. I am a stay-at-home dad with more time on my hands than most folks. I devote an absurd amount of time to playing board games. I still could not imagine sitting down with a rulebook, learning a game, having some other gamers join me to play a game 3 to 4 times, etc., as often as would be required to create content that is based in any sort of experience with a game for 7 games a week. I just don't know how they do it. It's our career. It is literally what we do. I, from the beginning of Quackalope, have operated about 3 to 4 different board game groups. Almost every single day and every single night of the week, I'm out playing 2 to 3 board games when I'm able to. Or I'm here learning games, watching other reviews, watching gameplays, doing as much research and due diligence as I can to bring you as much information as possible. We also have the advantage that oftentimes people in our community, or our publishers specifically, are willing to get on a phone with us, teach us the game, and walk us through rules on things like TTS. There's ways to make it happen, but there's not ways to make it happen if it's not our career. That's the balance point. Christian Smith. I'm trying to remember how Quackalope started, and all I can remember is that he did a ton of really good editing within TTS that actually allowed you to see the game played. Others were having a really tough time doing that. Was an excellent watch during the times when face-to-face gaming wasn't available to me. I miss the dude with the beard. I don't know what happened to him, but he was a glue for me. Haven't had as much fun with Quackalope since he stopped being featured. Interesting. I'm still around. Kristen Smith, nice to see you again. I'm back. I am around often. You just need to subscribe to the channel to be a part of this show and a part of the conversation. TTS is great, but it's not my preferred way to play games. And honestly, we spent so much time with the Discord community playing games over the pandemic season that I burned out on TTS hard. It was a really, really hard time for me and a lot of other people. And TTS was just a crushing weight that was both a relief and also exhausting. And now I find that I don't really want to dive back into TTS unless there's good reason, like Marvel Zombie gameplays where there's no physical copy of a game to showcase. And yeah, we started not on TTS. We started about 1.5 years earlier than that, doing high-quality production, doing editing and B-roll and multiple camera angles, using my skill as a photographer and videographer, right, as a career professional. And so when we approached TTS, I approached it as a cameraman, trying to give the audience as good of a view as possible for those videos, because I honestly don't enjoy the vast majority of the TTS gameplays that are out there. Caroline Black, responding to Richard Ham, who was responding to Caroline Black. She says, it feels like he was sold out. Rhado responds, it's been a while since I've seen one of these, so I just want to put it out there once more. He's always up for chatting. And then Caroline Black said, I do not think you actively and purposely mislead viewers. I'm well aware that you only review games you like. I understand that. I don't waste my time criticizing games I don't like. I used to be a massive fan of yours, watching dozens of your videos. I have bought quite a lot of games as a direct result of watching one of your run-throughs. However, then around the time you left Malta, I found that you started to review a lot more Kickstarters. Then there was advertising. Then a lot of your content became available for backers only. Then videos I thought were Rhado were somebody else. But most of all, you stopped reviewing a lot of games I like. I fully appreciate that you need to make a living and that this has resulted in you developing a more difficult business, a different business. And this has resulted in you developing a different business model. I still occasionally stumble across older games I am thinking of buying, and I always am pleased when you have covered it. I'm sorry if I offended you. That wasn't my intention. Caroline, I think that's great to double back and sort of continue the conversation. It's really hard to read people's vocal tones, to read how they're perceiving or saying things. We've certainly experienced that. I'm sure even in this thread, I'm getting people wrong. So I appreciate you doubling back and kind of having a conversation with Rhado. I think that's really important to do. Robert Bolton. I haven't been a fan since most board game video content creators for a few years. It seemed to be a race to see who can review the hottest game first to gain some type of internet clout within the board game community. Then being able to monetize that clout by promoting the latest Kickstarter. I respect the hustle, but I just don't care to pay that much attention to it. Robert, I totally appreciate that feeling. I totally appreciate that stance within the context that the stuff we've done on stuff that has not been new and upcoming has performed worse across the board. And that's true for nearly every channel that exists. So it's kind of a catch-22. If I want to review the old classics, I also have to chase the hype to have the audience that justifies it and to share it with them. If I want to show someone how incredible Bus is, which is my favorite game of all time, I have to do that within the context of sharing new things with them and then reminding them of what still exists. Julman Tuliso, or Tulio, responding to Robert Bolton, who just commented, and Julman said, "Sincerely and from the bottom of my heart, it's all background noise and I've tuned it out. It's an overload, man." I think that's fair. I think it is an overload in a lot of ways. Richard Ham pops back in. Rhado himself pops back in, responding first to the skirted meeple. Rhado, you kind of changed the goalposts to whether you are purposely misleading people. Rhado says, "Well, I'm not sure how else to interpret Rhado as a sellout other than being an accusation. My opinions are bought and sold, i.e. I'm lying to my viewers. The fact that people keep saying Rhado has changed and sold out because I'm always positive seem to have forgotten that I've always been positive since I've started my show 10 years ago. And I've always chosen to only showcase games that I think are great, because who has the time or inclination to play games that are garbage, let alone spend hours talking about them and filming them?" And then he quotes again, I think the response of many viewers to your approach is a risk you took, but where you're at may be a worthwhile trade-off. While I don't credit your reviews anymore, sadly used to, I do appreciate your gameplays." And Rhado continues, Cool. That's the other thing that always confuses me about folks who are quick to say that I'm a shill/sellout, which has happened ever since I picked up a camera, and back then I was making $0 on the show, and yet somehow I was a sellout because I simply talked about things I liked. Namely, if you think I'm corrupt, just ignore the final thoughts section and watch my run-throughs to decide for yourself if you think a game would be enjoyable. My opinions are subjective, and the run-through is subjective. Jesse and Alex, I don't really know either of them very well, but I assume they are also not charlatans trying to hoodwink their audience, but instead are positive people who are excited about games and enjoy talking about things that they like. By the way, I also believe this to be true of the folks at MVM and Tantrum House, who are constantly and unfairly accused of being on the take. It always is intriguing to me that people are quick to throw around the accusation, but never back it up with actual examples where the demonstrably bad game was given a gold star. The internet seems to bring out the worst in some people, in that it makes us quick to assume the worst in each other. Appreciate Rhado jumping in here. I appreciate the defense of the content creator space as a whole, and I think his statements are fair. I don't think anyone in here is getting in this to try to deceive people. We love this space. We love this hobby. Why else would I put in effort to be here if we didn't? Rhado's going to continue, though, responding to Caroline Black, who is the person who responded to her own comment, which was the thing that originally instigated Rhado, saying that he was a sellout. Rhado says, yes, when I moved back to the States so that my elderly mother moved in with us so we could take care of her, and I had to start paying for her health insurance that I can't afford to actually use. Our cost of living almost tripled, and I could no longer continue to do Rhado runs through as a career. So I had to make a choice, go back to the video game industry and stop the channel, or find a way to have the channel support our suddenly much more expensive life. I chose the later, but while I did turn YouTube ads on and I did start a Patreon, I made a couple of videos a month available exclusively for backers of the show, and I did start charging for Kickstarter previews. Nothing has changed about the actual content itself. My attitude has always been, 1, cover stuff I'm excited about, and the types of games I cover hasn't changed at all. Conflict-free Euros, light-heavy. And 2, let the game speak for itself. Those are my guiding principles. Since then, I've been fairly successful, and so I'm trying to give back by bringing others into the channel as contributors, so that they can be successful too. AFK, I pay my freelance contributors more per video than any other channel. Also, I've tried to use my platform to make a positive change in the world by fundraising for charities and signal boosting the marginalized members of the board game community, which, as it turns out, is very bad for business, which is probably why no other big channel does it. But then no one ever said I was a smart businessman. Quote, I'm sorry if I offended you, that wasn't my intention. And then Rhado responds, thank you. Sorry if I was snippy. I should just let it go and ignore it, but for a decade now, people have been accusing me of being on the take, corrupt, shill, sold out, etc., etc. I should just ignore it, like Jesse and Alex are smartly doing with this thread. Awkward. But sometimes it just hits me at the wrong time and it hurts. I think folks are quick to forget that we are people, and being accused of being bad people simply hurts. The internet is great at depersonalizing everyone, and it sucks. But it's just the price of doing business. Honestly, I often think I'm not cut out for this line of work. It certainly gets harder every year to keep going. I maybe should take his advice and never post this video. I don't know. I certainly feel better after reading through everything. But I definitely relate to the last point that he makes there. It is not only physically and financially hard to be in this space. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, with less reward than I have gotten in any other career I've been in. Granted, I love this space. But it is hard to be in this space at times. Being a public figure to some degree, even in a niche hobby space, opens yourself up to this, and people forget that you're just a person, right? Either way, Paulo Renato responds to Richard Ham. Richard Ham saying, it's interesting to me that people are quick to throw around the accusation. To me, this all comes down to jealousy. People see people grow and getting successful and getting money for playing games. They forget it's not just playing games, but it's a different discussion. People forget it's not just playing games, but that's a different discussion, and have to find an excuse for felling the green monster inside of them, and the easiest of those excuses is he/she is a sellout, he is getting paid. Yes, people that reach large audiences get paid for their work, just like everyone else that works in any other line of business. One thing is not liking the content or for the style, for the amount of content produced, for the type of games covered, etc., reducing everyone to can't trust because he gets paid, is just sad and says a lot about the person that thinks that way. To me, they are simply projecting what they would do if they were doing the work that other people are criticizing as doing. The conclusion to this is that everyone should work for free, or they are just sellouts. Paulo, I appreciate the defense. I appreciate the context. I also don't think people's criticisms are unfair. Like I've said multiple times, it is hard to communicate efficiently and effectively through this blunt object. And that is the challenge that all of us are trying to do. People who are upset, concerned, are not necessarily just jealous. Some of them might be, but not all of them. Some of them want to really, truly understand why or how people can operate in this space, to be honest, to be fair, to be critical. And they maybe have invested more in Kickstarter than they should. Maybe they feel the pressure and the stress. Maybe they want more blunt, objective opinions. There's a lot of different things that people are looking for, and it's hard to diagnose what each individual one of them wants. Richard Ham responds to Paulo's statement. To me, this all comes down to jealousy. Richard says, I suppose that's the case some of the time, but of course, assuming ill intent from those who assume the worst of media folks is just a continuation of the internet being a really good at getting us to assume the worst of each other. Internet feeds on negativity. Fires always suck up the most oxygen. I think that's a totally fair response from Rhado there. Paulo says, yes, people reach a large audience and get paid for their work, just like everyone else that works in any other line of business. Base is responding here. Base is the one that had the list that I responded to. Base said, that's usually true, but it's also relevant who is paying them. Paid by advertisers, paid by publishers directly, and paid by views are different situations. The answer is yes. The answer is yes to all of that, because once again, I've explained, our channel could not, in any way, shape, or form, sustain itself without making a drastic change if our Patreon, our YouTube, or our publisher contracts dropped. Every single one of those is contributing to the bit that we make. If Patreon dropped, we might have to take more publisher contracts. If publisher contracts ceased tomorrow, we'd have to let the audience know, and we might have to do something like a Kickstarter, a fundraiser, or scale back. If YouTube advertising went to zero, well, that'd be bad because our platform would be gone. But then on top of that, we would have to ask for more Patreon money. We might have to take another contract. We might have to go work a part-time job to continue doing this type of stuff. And if I did that, if I had to backtrack to a part-time job to do Quackalope, I would not do Quackalope. I wouldn't. At this point, it is too big of a beast. It's too big for me to step away from without fully stepping away from. And it would hurt too much, honestly. Caroline Black is responding again to Rhado. Rhado said he's been fairly successful bringing others in as collaborators so that they can be successful too, and he pays them more than any other content creator in the space. Caroline says, that's really interesting. I always assumed you brought in other contributors so you could make more money. I was disappointed that they were not as good as you. It goes to show how easy it is to misinterpret people's motives. I also dislike the fundraising. I guess if you are going to fundamentally change your channel, you will inevitably alienate some long-term users. And there's 100% right. At a certain point, there's no way for me to make everyone happy. I'm probably going to upset some people for doing this conversation. I'm sure I've said a half a dozen things throughout this conversation that is just wrong. And then Rhado apologized, and Caroline said, I have never thought for 1 minute of you being on the take. You can't fake the kind of enthusiasm you have for some games, and that is the enthusiasm and mile-a-minute delivery that I like. In any event, I tend to watch run-throughs rather than final thoughts. I think if you are going to be a game reviewer, you have to put your neck out on the line. There's going to be people that disagree with you, but it's that honestly that people like. No one wants bland, on the fence opinions. You've made a massive contribution to our hobby. Please continue going. Torquillo is saying, I don't believe any of the board game reviewers are bad people with nefarious intentions. Neither do I think that everyone who critiques a reviewer's work or commercial practices is motivated by jealousy or internet-fueled nastiness. I've been on the end of countless reviews when I used to be a musician, so I know it can be hurtful when someone criticizes your work. But it's okay to criticize art, music, films, and reviews, especially when the reviewers are being paid to actively influence you. Being abusive is another thing. Yeah, it goes both ways. I'm not upset by the nature of criticism. I need criticism. I need criticism from my close friends, from my family, from, I had close people to me call me up and be like, oh, dude, you look like an idiot. I also had close people to me say, do the clickbait thing, like dive into it. What's the worst that can happen? Either way, it's an interesting conversation point because there is a balance. There's a balance between criticizing and reviewing work and art and what we're creating. And then there's people that are like, I honestly don't like that Quackalope guy at all. I don't like Jesse at all. He is a mansplainer. He has long dramatic pauses. He talks funny. He's a shill. He's like, a lot of the stuff that we see that pop up every now and then and displayed in this thread are much more personal attacks at the version of me that you think you know. And it seems to ignore the fact that I am still me. I am me on camera. I am me having a conversation. I'm me sharing stuff with you. and I could be wrong. My opinion could be invalid. All criticisms like that are fine. I don't mind if you tell me I played a game wrong. I don't mind if you go in and you tell me that you just don't agree with my opinion or that we don't match up. I don't match up with a lot of other people's opinions. It's great. But, yeah, there is a shift where it just kind of hurts a little bit. Jamie Tang, responding to Caroline Back, responding to Richard Ham, responding to Caroline Black again. Caroline says, it feels like he's sold out. Richard responded, he runs through about 150 games a year. Couldn't some of those be good? Caroline Black says, I don't think you actively or purposely mislead viewers. And now Jamie Tang has hopped in. There's the crux of it. A reviewer is just an opinionated person with a camera. There's no objective game is good or game is bad. Every time I think that there is a game that is awful, no modifiers, someone will come along who genuinely likes it. Reviewers are positive people who love games and get to choose what they review. Maybe early on in your board gaming journey, you ran across a reviewer that you liked and you bought a few games based on what they said. Then you played several hundred more games and it's harder to impress you now that your tastes have changed. It doesn't make a reviewer a sellout when their opinion differs from yours. I'm nearly certain that you could offer Rhado $1 million and he still wouldn't do a full run-through and review of Kingdom Death Monster. I just watched a short Quackalope clip about playmats. It's amusing that his girlfriend is new to the hobby. She's more informative than some other reviewers, but she doesn't have the breadth of experience that you would expect of someone with a professional channel. There's no checklist of specific games that reviewers must have played, or examination they must pass, or requirements for annual recertification, or an independent auditor of ratings. In the end, a reviewer is a person with an opinion and a camera. Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, Shira played 700 games, or had 700 plays the first, I think, year and a half she dived into this space because she was playing throughout the pandemic. She grew up in this hobby remarkably fast. Alan Brown, responding to Forrest Dunton, who was talking about so much negativity in here, and also comparing the fact that Alex and I are not the same channel by any means. Alan Brown said, I was going to read this entire thread before posting, but I couldn't state my feelings better than this post does. Thank you. Playing games is supposed to be a fun experience. Timothy Forrest. I've never been a fan of Quackalope content myself. I'm sure the guy is nice enough. Hi, Timothy. But I don't really care for his delivery or the endless paid hype videos. Although, to be honest, paid promotional videos for any board game on Kickstarters tend to turn me off, and they really don't do anything for me to get me to back a game. Just for the record, the stuff I'm the most hyped about is often, if not always, unpaid. That's another fascinating thing about this puzzle that I find. Townsfolk Tussle would be a good example. Not a cent in relation for Townsfolk Tussle. In fact, I paid for the game myself. I paid for multiple copies of the game myself. Why? Because I thought the game was great. And guess what I did? I hyped the heck out of that game. You know why? Because I thought the game was great. It's true for a lot of other things. Like I've said earlier on in this video, we don't charge new publishers here at Quackalope. So if you see someone that's brand new doing content here, check our status. We specifically want to hype up, share, and find the best quality indie games possible. And that gets harder and harder the larger we grow. But yeah, just for the record, just so you know. As far as Board Game Co., I enjoy, this is still Timothy Forrest, or Timothy Frost. As far as Board Game Co., I enjoy some of his early videos where he got philosophical about purging games and the hobby overall. But then he started doing more paid promotional stuff. Alex has never done paid promotional stuff, for the record. I think he did a backer kit look at video that had money tied to it. Maybe. But no, Board Game Co. doesn't do paid promotional stuff, just for the record. But then he started doing more paid promotional stuff, and knowing he also runs a business that buys and sells board games, it started feeling kind of icky. Like there was a conflict of interest that made his videos unpalatable for me. So it's interesting, right? Like, we get this feedback, but Alex, who's been very clear about the stance of his channel consistently, also was getting this feedback. It's more conversation about the wider consumer space, the hobby space itself, and how much of this are we able to communicate and address, and how much of this is just some degree of misinterpretation, the 5% flux that'll just exist in the nature of creating content. The Skirted Meeple responding to Richard Ham, who was responding to Paul Rento. Paul Rento said, to me, this all comes down to jealousy. Richard Ham responded saying that, yeah, that's the case, but oftentimes it's not just jealousy. It's some other things as well. And ultimately, we need to be more mindful of the fact that blaming everything on jealousy is just feeding kind of the nature of the problem. And then the Skirted Meeple responds, I don't think someone being majorly effervescent about so many games means that they're a bad person or lying to people. I viewed it as a style or approach, not a deceit. But I do see how you may think of it as suggesting something dishonest. Promotion in and of itself isn't bad. Heck, sales and selling isn't inherently bad. But as a viewer, I'm looking for a different type of content, I guess. I think I'm commenting because I feel that there's a difference in your final thought segments. No empirical evidence and no idea if it is real. Clearly, you disagree it is. But it's definitely what viewers and myself feel, and that's real. The heavy promo content has a real impact, but I think it's more than just that, because I don't think promo content alone would lose me. All in how you do it, I think. I think it takes a special approach to be able to have some promo content and reviews and not have viewers have the feelings I have. Clearly, that may be what people are responding to for Quackalope. It does impact viewers, and hopefully the content providers understand the trade-off. But anyway, I was saying all of this from a place of slight disappointment, because I replied before on Rhado's final thoughts, and that was my main go-to that I searched for each game I was interested in, and now I feel bummed to view it differently and have not had it as a resource. Also, for me personally, it is not helpful to hear a reviewer that loves every game, even if due to only reviewing games he or she loves, or even a reviewer that is in love with hundreds of games a year. Of course, there's a chance that the different content provider voices out there are what changed my perspective versus Rhado changing. However, others seem to perceive a change too, and I really recall feeling differently in the final thoughts I used to watch. How Paul Rento decides this is jealousy is interesting. That makes people feel better and also dismiss the constructive feedback. But it makes zero sense when I was allocating 10 other channels who are also successful, and I hope their star continues to rise. In fact, I hope Rhado continues to do his thing, but understands that the promo content makes it hard for us to sort out and use his content in a way that's of value to some of us. Feedback, but could just be what it is with the trade-off. The Skirted Meeple, I think that's a fair comment, right? There will always be some degree of wiggle, some degree of trade-off back and forth when it comes to like how we monetize, how we approach content, what content we enjoy making, what we do and don't cover on the channel. And all we can do is our best, and all we can do is do our best to listen, engage with the feedback from the community. So, yeah. Isaac Sarr. I am more of a stats person, I think. So I guess my question for Rhado would be, if your channel is growing or not. If it's growing and are you finding success, don't worry about what people online say about it. It's clearly working for you and you are making a living doing what you love. If the channel is struggling a bit, then maybe look into some of the criticisms and try to find the root of the problem. Isaac, I think that's totally fair. If a channel is doing poorly, not growing very much, not getting many views, anything like that, they should always take a look at what they could be doing better, how they could better serve the community, better serve the audience, better engage with people. From our side of things, I'm very proud of where Quackalope is, and I also want to see Quackalope do better. I want more views, I want more engagement, I want more subscribers. Like I want to continue growing this thing that we have, which means that we have to actively take the stance that we listen to and try to find the positive in whatever feedback we're given. That's the balance, right? That's the shifting nature of this whole thing. This thread, while it is full of a collection of people who just don't like me, it's also full of stuff that I can grow from, stuff that I can read and understand and digest, and even the harshest criticism on the internet could still be adapted and taken. Now, that doesn't mean that every criticism is accurate nor worth taking, but it does mean that some stuff could be, right? And that's the point of having the conversation, of talking, of working your way through it, of opening up the door to chat with people. At Adam VIP, responding to the Skirted Meeple. Skirted Meeple said, it's one person's moniker, and I enjoy watching him and his girlfriend mostly. So this is them talking about Quackalope. The Skirted Meeple's talking about us. Adam VIP says, BYP, is still a great resource for mid to heavy Euro playthroughs. It's quite helpful to see that sort of stuff as mechanics make or break them. I used to get that from AntLab, but then they left and I found BYP. AntLab is back trying to do more Kickstarter stuff, but the videos seem odd now and less genuine than they were in the past. It's like Martha Stewart pretending to be perfect or something. And then Adam VIP pops in, responding to Caroline Black, responding to Richard Ham. Caroline Black said it feels like he sold out. Richard Ham responded saying since it's been a while since he's seen one of these threads. And Adam VIP says, I think Tom Vasel handles bad reviews the best. He puts a bunch of them together in a single video and says why he doesn't like them and moves on. You should consider something similar. I'm sure you would get some sinkers in that $150 per year. It's interesting. Again, Tom Vasel's in a unique position. He is able to pay someone else to do his Kickstarter coverage. He's able to just make a living entirely, his entire company, off of covering as many games as possible, and yet he still gets beat up from time to time about being shill, being too negative, being too critical. Definitely gets feedback and criticism around sort of the nature of his content, like playing games wrong and then putting out a review video where he clearly misinterpreted something along the way. That doesn't mean his opinion or experience is wrong. It does mean that it's hard to effectively and efficiently communicate to the audience, no matter who you are. It's just part of the puzzle. Adam VIP. Also, since we are plugging channels here, I've been watching Totally Tabled a bunch. I just subscribed to them. They're awesome. It's just one dude playing solo games. He's expanding into some reviews and top 10 stuff, but the solo plays are the main mat and potatoes. He explains rules, mechanics, and his strategy while playing, and he's a genuinely great attitude. He just hit 1,000 subscribers and should certainly have more. Rhado is popping in here again. Now, the interesting thing, we had no idea this thread existed. I don't even know if BoardGameGo knows this existed. I had no idea until I got texted, a day after it existed at a game night. Okay. Richard, responding to Isaac Sauer, who's saying I'm more of a stats person. So my question would be for Rhado, is your channel growing or not? Richard Ham said, if you like stats, there's a lot of them in this thread where there was a bunch of conjective and analysis into why my channel growth has significantly slowed down since I started wearing BLM shirts. And he shares a thread. So I wouldn't say I'm struggling. Things are fine, and I'm happy that I'm able to help other folks by spreading the wealth around. Whenever you see someone else on my channel doing a run-through, I'm making no money on that. And then Adam VIP says, I think Tom Vasel handles bad reviews the best. He puts a bunch of them together into a single video, suggesting that Rhado should do the same thing. Sorry about that. And Rhado says, that would require me to be prepared to spend my time, and more importantly, my wife's time playing bad games. And I've never been willing to do that. So yeah, the $150 per year you see me cover, there aren't any sinkers. We play more than $150 a year, and the ones that don't appear on my channel are skipped because they were actively bad. I suppose I could rip them apart, but that's not in my DNA. I was a video game designer for 2 decades. I know how much it hurts to get savaged by a bad review, and even more important, how much it hurts the bottom line of the publisher if it's a bad review from a significant voice. Tom has the ability to significantly move the needle and prevent games from ever getting reprints, for example. I probably do too, but I don't want to test that. So yeah, I'm in the if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all camp, which is another reason I suggest folks watch the run-throughs and decide for themselves if a game looks like fun. So for those of you that are curious, that is absolutely the case about Dice Tower and Tom. A negative review from Dice Tower I have known to not only sink and stop sales entirely, but actually cripple and destroy publishers, which doesn't mean that he shouldn't do them. It's just a weight of what are you willing to do? What is the responsible thing to do? Is it responsible to let the audience know that you personally didn't enjoy a game? Or, at a certain point, does that get mitigated by the fact that other people might enjoy the game? And if you didn't enjoy the game, you're letting them know, sure, but you're also potentially putting a small business, putting a single person out of work. I don't think he's wrong or right for the decision. I think it's just a decision he has to make. And it's the same decision that we all have to make as well. Like, as far as my channel is concerned, I have no intention of ever trying to destroy someone. But I also have no intention of ever just being happy and positive. I want to be honest. I want to be critical. That's why we have the Right For You, Wrong For You series, where we have the leniency to be critical and thorough with the way we talk about a game and how it might not fit your playstyle without being directly and purposefully negative about it. That's the balance. And it's hard to strike, and not all of our content gets there. Some of our content goes overboard, but it is the balance. Ben B. I started watching / subbing to Quackalope when they did Pendulum July 13th, 2020. I've enjoyed their channel ever since. I think you have to understand age demographics and the target market a bit better. I'm one side of the markets. I'm heavily into theme, flavor text, production value, board games, hour-long videos, etc. I think the production value and the effort Jesse puts into his videos is unprecedented. I enjoy the guests, banter, and majority of games previewed and played. I'd argue again that this channel is based on demographics. What percent of you watch 2 to 3 hours of YouTube a day? I easily do that. I don't have cable / DirecTV, full modern digital subscriber. It is Netflix, Hulu, Disney, HBO Max, YouTube Premium, Apple TV, VR, VRV. I see zero commercials other than essentially board game, video game, tabletop, CCG gameplay, review videos. These reviewers / previewers are active in this community too. So take care with your comments, as some of you sound a bit harsh. Ben, I appreciate it. I appreciate that you're a fan of the channel. Thank you so much for commenting. I am sorry that you are in a position where you feel it is necessary to come to our defense or share, but I really appreciate you sharing your opinion here like this. I do think some of the criticisms are totally fair. I think we have misstepped in some ways over the years, and we've learned from that across the board. But I also, this is the part of content creation that I don't enjoy, right? Just an individual here digging in. Dennis Stein, not a fan of Quackalope or his videos. Thank you so much for the knowledge. I don't have anything else to say. Michael Culbertson. They really made a strong entrance on focusing on Kickstarter campaigns. I back a lot of Kickstarter campaigns and have really enjoyed having both Quackalope and Board Game Co. bring a lot of games to my attention or review the games I'm interested in backing. For that matter, also Shelf Clutter and Legion games too. I'm also a longtime fan of OG reviewers out there. The Dice Tower, Rhado, Man vs. Meeple, Roll for Crit, Shut Up and Sit Down, to name just a few, and truly appreciate any new perspectives brought into this industry. Everybody has unique tastes in games as well as in game reviewers, and I hope that we can see even more new perspectives to come. My first go-to for any Kickstarter review is always Rhado first, as he most aligns with my playstyle and games I enjoy the most. Keep up the great work, Rhado. Michael, I think an important thing for people to do is digest the YouTube creator community to find people who match up with what they enjoy. If you find that a reviewer misses the mark multiple times for you, maybe you don't watch their stuff, or maybe you don't trust their stuff, or maybe you read their stuff differently. If they're positive about a mechanic, maybe that's a mechanic that doesn't work for you. It doesn't mean that it's a bad mechanic. It means that their tastes don't match with you. It's the same for myself. I want people to try to know me and know the content that I enjoy enough to know what games work for me, what games don't work for me, and how that reflects upon their own buying decision. Ultimately, it comes down to personal perspective, and having someone that matches up with you as much as possible is the best way to source that information. And maybe we need to do content around that, helping diagnose and analyze what different content creators focus on, what they enjoy, what they look for. But it takes work. It's hard to do. Paulo Rhado, responding to the Skirted Meeple. The Skirted Meeple was responding to how he decides that this is jealousy. They were saying that they're not sure if that's fair, and it kind of dismisses the constructive feedback that might be there. Paul Rhado says, I don't think you understood my point. I was referring to the people that simply accuse others of being sellouts, corrupts, etc. I didn't say that everyone that doesn't like a popular thing, i.e. a reviewer or a movie or a song, is simply jealous. That would indeed make no sense. I specifically said, and then he quotes himself, one thing is not liking content for the style, for the amount of content produced, for the type of games covered, etc. From what you say in this post, you think Rhado has changed the way he does his final thoughts, and you don't like that. I think this is not the case, and I listen to every single one of them. So I don't agree with you here, but these are simply opinions, nothing more. Getting back to the point, what you wrote in this last post is not the same spear of not liking and saying you don't like. What you wrote in this last post is not in the same spear of not liking and saying you don't like it because he is a sellout. Because he's corrupt and he is on the take from the publishers being paid to say what they want him to say. People are free to like and dislike whatever they want, but when their reason for disliking it is by slandering others, by accusing them of something without any proof of their accusations, well, I already said what I think it is. Hope I made my point clear. I thought I was already pretty clear, but it seems I was mistaken. Keith R. Just because somebody isn't your style doesn't make it bad or wrong. People seem to have issues making decisions at times. For all things you might not like, those may be the very things other people enjoy. Yeah, exactly. Aaron B. Hopping into this, responding to James D, who is responding to Richard Ham, who is responding to Caroline Black. Caroline says it seems like he's sold out. Richard Ham said it's been a while since he's seen one of these. James D popped in saying this isn't the best place for the conversation, but he was asking if Quacks and Quedlinburg was like a hidden gem for Rhado. And then Aaron B says, Rhado can come across as overly gushy, and I've rolled my eyes a time or two at his zeal, but I believe him to be honest and forthright in his reviews, and he isn't afraid to admit if a game isn't for him. In fact, that's how I came to be in the possession of my copy of Root and the Riverfolk expansion. I watched his final thoughts of the game, and he clearly explained why this popular and critically acclaimed title just wasn't for him and his wife. And the things he didn't like are the very things that interested me. So I reached out to him and asked if I could buy his copy, since he wasn't planning on keeping it. He sold it to me at a fair price, even though he could have easily asked for more, since no one had it in stock at the time. That to me shows his integrity on several levels. One, he could have ridden the hype train, but instead he was frank in his review and detailed why it wasn't a game for him, even though it held promise. Two, he could have sold the game at a markup when no one had it in stock, and it seemed everyone was clamoring to get a copy, but instead he sold it to me at a fair price. I realize Rhado doesn't need me running to his defense, but I thought I'd share a little behind-the-scenes perspective on my interactions with this man and his integrity. Thanks, Aaron, for the context and adding to the conversation. And this conversation is still going on. We have Jason, Alan, and Timothy that have all commented within the last 2 hours, so interesting. Jason said, Joseph Pugh, genuine question, what do you want from reviewers/previewers to do? Jason, a previewer, I expect them to learn the rules and have a game or two before recording a live play. Fumbling through a game for 2 hours, getting rules wrong, makes for a bad preview. I totally agree, Jason. We rarely have been in that situation, except for something along the lines of something like Kingdoms Forlorn, where I spent 25 hours preparing, and then another 15 hours editing, composing, and trying to get it up and running. So a little bit more than the 2 hours. And we did 2 playthroughs off camera before diving in. Alan Brand. I think the enthusiasm Alex, Boardgame Co., and Jesse and Shira Quackalope show is obvious. I can see not liking someone's style, but to question their integrity because they get paid for Kickstarter previews is ridiculous. That only applies to Quackalope, by the way. Alex is looking for sponsors but doesn't take money for his Kickstarter coverage. But both channels don't shy away from giving their opinions. They have about as many subs as Tantrum House and Before You Play, and I love all 4 of them. Thank you, Alan, and thank you for clarifying the truth in the context on BoardGame Co. And then the last comment I have here, and I'll refresh to see if any more have popped up in the last 40 minutes of reading this. Gotta be honest, my jaw hurts, so I kind of hope none have. Because then I'm going to spend 3 hours editing this and a bit of time timestamping it. Timothy Frost, responding to Victor, who was saying he was getting inundated with personal financing tips like he's a gaming broker or something. I don't know, laugh out loud. And that's one example of why I personally get the vibe that neither him or Jesse are truly in it for the sake of the hobby. I think that kind of content is detrimental when it comes to board gaming coverage, but that's just me. Okay, Timothy Frost. Yeah, there were too many videos where he was more or less talking about the investment value of board games on Kickstarter and whether or not a given game would be a good return on investment in the secondary market. If that's why you're buying games, then you're in this hobby for the wrong reasons. I understand wanting to get the best value for a game if you sell it on the secondary market for whatever reason, but buying games just to flip them is too cynical for me and just felt a bit tacky. Alex has context in the secondary market, and on top of that, I can guarantee you he loves board games more than almost anyone, or probably more than anyone I've ever met. Now let's refresh this page. Scroll all the way to the down. And 41 minutes ago is going to be the last comment. So yeah. There we have it. What a video, right? That was a long conversation. I feel like I went through a lot of points. And I don't know that I have final thoughts here to like sum up everything that was said. I tried to address points point by point as they came through. I tried to engage and handed out my phone number there at one point. For those of you that were there, sorry, my throat is gone. For those of you that were there defending us, I appreciate the support. I appreciate you taking the time to let people know what you think of our channel, and I appreciate you being part of our community. I am sorry that you're put into a position where it is necessary at all to expend any energy in our defense. For those of you that are critical of us, and some of you fairly so, I appreciate your feedback. And I don't know that this is necessarily the right venue, but then again, it is hard to figure out a way to be heard on the internet. We are always listening, always reading, and always doing our very best to adjust, respond, and continue iterating on what we do here on Quackalope. That means the way we approach disclosures and sharing content so you can easily find it. If that means the way we take contracts and sponsorships, if that means the type of coverage we do, if that means making sure we do critical stuff on every game we touch, I don't know what the answer is. And I don't know that there is an answer to satisfy every single conversation. But when the conversation's being had, I think it's fair to engage in it to some degree. So, this was a long video. For those of you that watched, thanks for being here. For those of you that skipped to the end or jumped around, I hope you enjoyed it. My jaw is genuinely, remarkably sore. Sure, I'm going to hold my face like this, and whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. At the end of all of this, the tagline that we've had for, I guess, 2.5 years, a little bit over, for longer than this channel has been a thing. Remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.